emergency time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday noontime edition of the New Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Yeah, this StreamYard, they got to get rid of this thing with the scene editor thing. It's stupid. It's stupid. That's why there's that blank space. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why they would do that. It's working fine. It was working fine. You know, some things you don't have to fix. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, that's what Elon says about South Africa. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, some things are just better the way they were, according to the great, entrepreneurial minds of today. I don't know why they changed it. Makes it much harder. It's much less intuitive, adds a step. Not good. Believe me, not good.
You know, one of the things, every now and then you see things happen where people get paid a lot of money to make choices like this. You say, where do I get in on that? Right. It's just making work, making projects, justifying your job. When they changed IHOP for a minute to IHOB, whose idea was that?
Yeah.
It sounds like someplace you wouldn't want to eat.
Yeah, IHOB.
It just sounds nasty. It sounds like an old man's feet.
Yeah.
IHOB.
IHOB.
Yeah. But somebody got paid for that. One of my favorite
sounds like a rejected Israeli name. Yeah, right. Or, hey, let's call ourselves IHOB. No.
Let's just keep taking the names from the great big Star Wars book of rejected character names.
Yeah, exactly.
Yov Galant. He was supposed to run a cantina on Tatooine, but this is your name now.
Jacoby.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite stories like that. It was in like Reefer Madness for some reason. I could be wrong. They opened a McDonald's near Auschwitz, and as part of their promotion, they were giving out flyers that said, "Welcome to Auschwitz. Welcome to McDonald's."
McDonald's, yeah, that's funny.
Like someone got paid to come up with that.
Yeah, to come up with that. You never know. Market for everything. All right, let's jump right in and get going. We got some news to get to today. First story up. Hey, there's a government shutdown due to happen tomorrow. Let's see if that's going to happen or not.
All right. Chucky's big gambit. Chucky's big move to grab the gavel back from the Republicans to mount a resistance that will rouse the nation. Here is Chuck announcing his gambit.
Funding the government should be a bipartisan effort, but Republicans chose a partisan path, drafting their continuing resolution without any input from congressional Democrats. Because of that, Republicans do not have the votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on the House CR. Our caucus is unified on a clean April 11th CR that will keep the government open and give Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation that can pass. We should vote on that. I hope our Republican colleagues will join us to avoid a shutdown on Friday. I yield the floor.
All right. So Speaker Johnson responded. This is from his account. Democrats either have an issue with reading comprehension or they're running a shameful misinformation campaign. The CR has no cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, or veterans benefits. All right, so let's see what he had to say.
Reading comprehension, or they are attempting to run one of the most shameful misinformation campaigns that we've ever seen in our lives. We filed that the CR, the continuing resolution, on Saturday, and as was noted, they had already come out panning the bill that literally had not yet been seen. They said, quote, this is the House Democrat leadership team's statement on Friday. Remember, the bill was filed on Saturday afternoon. On Friday, they said, quote, Republicans have decided to introduce a partisan continuing resolution that threatens to cut funding for health care, nutritional assistance, and veterans benefits through the end of the year. Every single word of that is a lie. They just made it up. They didn't read the bill. It's nonsense. People are not buying this. And you see the contrast between one party, which is leading, moving the ball forward for the American people, and the other that is just screaming. Then the Democrats start parroting this talking point in interviews all weekend on CNN. They said, quote, it's so harmful to the American people. You know, cutting Medicaid, cutting Medicare, threatening Social Security, cutting veteran benefits. It's all a lie. You can all read the bills, 99 pages. This clean CR contains no poison pill riders, no policy riders there at all. No cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security, zero. No cuts to veterans benefits, zero. In fact, as was noted, we plus up the accounts for veterans. And respectfully, I'm just going to say this to every reporter in the room, that if you're allowing Democrats to make these intentionally false, scurrilous claims without pushback,
you'll be deported.
You're aiding and abetting the spreading this misinformation. I would just ask you to call them on.
You're siding with terrorists.
They deserve that clarity
exactly,
from our press corps. Make them point it out to you. They can't, of course.
Okay.
Is that guy over his right shoulder like 8 feet tall? Look at that guy. Put that up on the screen.
Have an issue with reading comprehension.
Yeah, how tall that guy
is
behind him.
Attempting to run.
I gotta say, from meeting political figures and finding that even the ones you don't know are freakishly tall, I'm kind of coming around to David Ickey's theory of reptile overlords wearing masks.
Yeah.
Why are all these political people freakishly tall? Why? Obama, de Blasio. I've met de Blasio a few times now.
Tall people have an advantage in politics.
You could say that, or you could say that V was not a sci-fi series. It was a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, all right. That sounds like cope coming from one of my vertically challenged comrades.
Listen, man. These people dwarf you. You're like normal tall. These
I'm
people
like 6 feet.
are
weird.
No,
people, they're big.
They're weird.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, Johnson, interestingly, if you pay attention to his rhetoric, these guys lie as often as they breathe. Not that the Democrats don't. If you notice, he does not attribute the statement that the CR cuts Medicare, Medicaid to any particular person, which you would imagine he does. What I think he probably did is he took a quote out of context about the overall Republican agenda and then said that's what they're claiming about the CR.
Right.
Otherwise, he would have called somebody out if he could have. Right. So he's setting up a straw man there that all these Democrats are making these claims. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I haven't seen any of them say that specifically. Even Schumer, you just saw his House speech. He didn't say that. He said the Democrats should be involved in drafting this bill, and he wants a 30-day bill, which we'll get into. Now, in terms of what's actually in the bill, let's face it, most people are too lazy to read a bill like this other than Thomas Massie. The best information I could find is that it raises defense spending by $8 billion, cuts domestic discretionary by $11 billion, does add $500 million to the WIC program. Indeed, which I don't think anyone is arguing with, does not cut Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security.
Right.
It extends the telehealth thing that they were talking about cutting for Medicare patients into September. It doesn't cut the VA from what I found. It cuts some of the funding for construction projects for VA facilities. Some of the Democrats are saying it has provisions in it that would make it more difficult to challenge executive authority in certain areas, but that's a little unclear. But is this a bill that makes monstrous cuts to the social safety net? No, clearly they wanted to get this through to buy themselves some time for doing that. So they crafted a bill the Democrats would have a hard time finding real exception with. You've got cuts to like rural broadband, like not good things, but not anything you could outrage the public about. So Nancy Mace, right before this, she was kicking open bathroom stalls to make sure only pussy's in that room.
Yeah.
And after having been satisfied with her personal check of people's genitals, she came out and did a little interview.
MZ, baby, how are you?
Yeah, see, she's in a good mood.
Yeah,
it's rough up here. What do you mean
not
it's rough
one
up
dick in that congressional bathroom.
They're going to lose their jobs. Everything is sad times.
It's not a sad time. It's a government efficient time. It's good. You'll make more money in the private sector than in the public sector. Working for the government, you're not going to make as much money as you can in the privite sector.
But what happens if the government shuts down?
And I'm just going to say quickly, this isn't what the segment's about, but I'm just going to say quickly. All of these private sector jobs are going away too. They're laying people off in the tech sector. They're laying people off in the private sector. Where are these jobs going to come from? This is a very, very simple question, and it's beyond the scope of this segment. But okay, if capitalism doesn't create work for people who are qualified, wanted, and eager to work, is that a failure of capitalism? It is, right? Isn't it? Like if you're going to argue that under communism there's a loss of incentivization to work hard, to be inventive, to be creative, well, wouldn't you say a failure of capitalism is not creating enough jobs for everyone that needs and wants one? Everybody who doesn't have a job is like lazy. I would argue most people who don't have a job want a job, or have been so discouraged by the labor market they've stopped looking for a job.
Yeah, and besides that, if you look at China, it looks like they're living 200 years in the future. So clearly there's not that much stifling of innovation either.
Right. Now you could definitely argue, and I would, that they're not doing a pure communism, but the counter argument to that would be, well, you said that didn't work and they agreed with you, so they made modifications where you don't have people like Jeff Bezos running their country, but at the same time they're allowing enough capitalism to create that incentive for innovation.
Plus, in real life, there's no such thing as pure anything. Oh, that's not pure communism. Right. That's not an argument. Right. In real life, there's no such thing as a pure system that runs according to the printed word.
Well, yeah. That's a good point too. But just the nuts and bolts here. What private sector jobs are these people just going to go out and get?
Yeah, and why should they have to? What are you saying? You shouldn't be able to work a government job? No, but hey, if you lost your government job, hey, you'll make more money in the private sector.
Well, they do believe. They want the country to run on like libertarianism and cryptocurrency.
Right, exactly.
I don't think we're going to. I think it's going to be just fine. We're going to get out of this. And if we do shut down, it's the far left's fault. They voted for every continuing resolution under the sun for the last 4 years. They can't vote for this one because it's Trump, and they're afraid of the orange man. They got real fear because of the orange man. This is his CR. We're going to vote.
But y'all going to make it happen.
We're going to make it happen, baby. Good to see you.
Egg prices are going to go back down.
Egg prices have already gone back down. And look what he's going to do. The price of your American-made car is going to go back down. I mean, interest rates are going to go down. I mean, that's what he's going to cut your taxes for every hardworking American, particularly for the middle class, and we need that.
What's the one thing people are asking for right now?
Oh, they want their money back. They want a refund.
Thank you so much, Clarkson. Have a good one.
Everything's going to be great.
Everything's going to be great. It seems like they're trying to make the argument that crashing the economy is bringing down inflation and prices, which indeed it will, right? If nobody has any money to buy anything, it will bring down prices and inflation. I don't think that's exactly the vision people had when they elected Donald Trump of fixing the economy, crashing it in order to bring down prices. And I don't know where she's buying eggs, but in Harlem, they have not gone down. The egg prices are still $11.50. But okay.
She's getting them from the bathroom. See, it's cross species bathrooms. They let chickens in the bathrooms, and the chickens lay the eggs in the bathrooms at the Capitol.
Well,
so they
you
get
know,
free eggs.
She might have a backyard coop, that one.
Yeah.
I was gonna have one.
It's probably cheaper to just raise chickens at this point for eggs. I mean, how expensive could a chicken be?
I was just reading an article. Yeah. People with backyard coops have their neighbors come in.
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, a chicken can't be that expensive.
Yeah. No. Because I had a backyard in this building for 13 years when I lived downstairs. And I looked into it. You can keep chickens in New York. You cannot keep roosters because of
they're loud.
Obviously. Yeah, but when I first moved into Harlem, and they didn't really pay much attention to Harlem, it was a little lawless. In the neighboring yard, there was a rooster. But not anymore. Okay, so today the Democrats are supposed to be meeting, maybe as we speak. Senate Dems last-minute shutdown gambit. Democrats say they won't give Republicans the vote to advance stopgap funding bill until they get an amendment vote on a clean CR through April 11th. Senate Democrats are still not committing to helping Republicans pass a 7-month funding stopgap, edging the country closer to a government shutdown as they attempt to force a vote on a shorter funding path. After 2 days of lengthy closed-door caucus talks and another planned for Thursday, Democrats emerged with an attempted strategy Wednesday afternoon. Democrats won't give Republicans the votes to advance the stopgap funding bill, known as a continuing resolution or CR, until they get an amendment vote on a clean CR through April 11th. Democrats have some leverage despite being in the minority. In order to meet the Friday night deadline to avoid a shutdown, Republicans will need all 100 senators to agree to speed up the process. Republicans also need at least 8 Democrats to overcome a filibuster and advance the CR. We'll see today if Democrat strategy holds. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has pushed for the April 11th CR, but hasn't officially weighed in. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told reporters he did not believe Senate Democrats had made an offer, though he said we're open to conversations about amendments. But though Democrats' gambit will likely do little except stave off the decision they have long dreaded, shut down the government to stand up to President Donald Trump and Elon Musk's spending cuts, or stand aside and leave their unilateral government reductions unchecked. Republicans have one Democratic yes vote, Senator John Fetterman. In the no column, Senators John Hickenlooper, Mark Warner, Jeff Merkley, Chris Coons, Adam Schiff, Tim Kaine, and Peter Welch. Couldn't resist. But keep an eye out for which Democratic senators will vote to proceed to consideration of the bill, where Republicans actually need Democratic support to get the necessary 60 votes, even if they won't vote for passage, which only requires a simple majority. Now, there's no way of saying, but if I know my Democrats, it would not surprise me if they allow it to go to a vote and then symbolically vote against it so they can say they voted against it. We shall see.
We shall see, yeah.
Who we're watching. Swing state senators Mark Kelly, Elisa Slutkin, Ruben Gallego, and Gary Peters. Kelly said Wednesday evening he was undecided on the procedural vote to advance the CR. Slotkin referred reporters back to her Sunday show comments where she said she would hold her vote until she got certain assurances about government cuts while filleting a statue of Ronald Reagan life-sized. House Democrats have only added to the pressure on their Senate colleagues after they voted almost unanimously against the funding bill Tuesday. During their annual issues conference on Wednesday, Their message to Senate Democrats was clear. Vote no on the continuing resolution. Quote, we're standing on the side of working families. Well, that'd be a first. Democratic whip Catherine Clark said. And that's why our message to the Senate is also stand with us on that side. Ms. Clark has a future as a teacher of rhetoric. Senator Fetterman, shut the government down, plunge the country into chaos, risk a recession, or exchange cloture for a 30-day CR that 100% fails. The House GOP CR will then pass the Senate because it only needs 51 votes. Total theater is neither honest with constituents nor a winning argument. Now, I hate to say it, but it kind of sounds like he has a point here.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, yes, like that sounds like my Democrats, that this is all theatrical. If I'm understanding what he's saying correctly, once they do the cloture in exchange for this vote on the 30-day, the vote on the 30-day will simply fail, and this will pass anyway. That it's just, I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like the Democrats. They're just, we stood up for the American people by way of clearing the way for the Republicans to get exactly what they want.
Right, but if they all vote no, if they don't get to 60 votes, then it goes to a shutdown.
If I'm understanding correctly, the way the rules work is they just need the 60 votes for it to move to the vote.
For it to move to the floor.
But then they don't need their votes.
Then they need 51
to actually pass it.
Right.
So what he's saying sounds about right. They're going to force a vote on this 30-day version that won't pass in order to make a point.
Right.
He's probably right about that. I'm not one to side with Fetterman. So here's Steve Bannon, kind of taking the Thomas Massie side of things, as you might expect. He recognizes earlier in this video, and a part we're not going to play, that tactically they're doing this basically to bide their time to get what they actually want. But at the same time, he seems to feel they should go more scorched earth, which is what Massie, I think, would agree with.
Call it what it is. Don't put it by saying, oh, these are huge wins. No, this is because of incompetent and cowardly House leadership. It just is. And to do what we need to do by September 30th, there's a ton of hard work and a lot of pain that's going to come. Just remember, inflation is driven by this massive federal spending. We're not going to stop that until you stop said federal spending.
Yeah, so I think he's voicing there exactly what they really want and what they plan on doing in September. But yeah, they are putting forward a continuing resolution that doesn't have real poison pills in it, like cutting healthcare,
right?
So that they can get to September and do a full-on assault. Now, they are gambling, and I don't think it's a great gamble, that by September, the American people are not going to be on the verge of storming Washington with pitchforks and torches, and that they're going to have the political capital to really force massive cuts to Medicaid through. But they seem to feel that if they bide their time, they'll get what they want. So let's just get this drama out of the way, and we can tactically plan for how we're going to execute our agenda once the CR's time frame is up.
Yeah, and I think that's a stupid decision, both because I think public opinion will have soured on them quite a bit by then, and also that's a month before Election Day. Now, there are no national elections this year, but there are state elections. And if you are talking about drastic cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid in September, that's a very bad time to be talking about those things at the end of September, because certain states, vote for governors and mayors and, high-risk races, just a month after that. So, yeah, I do think it is a stupid move. I think the Democrats should just vote no on everything. I think they should just vote no on everything. We're not cooperating with you at all, period. This is your government. Hakeem Jeffries said it's your government. You won the election. You figure this out. You figure this out and bet that they have enough people in their caucus to back down on their own. I think that's the hardball play there. But, of course, they're not really interested in doing that.
No. I think you're right. But, yes, these are the Democrats. If they really hold out, I think they'll just make it worse. I think they'll actually end up helping Trump, because if they really start articulating what they care about, you're going to start talking about USAID, how we have to restore funding to the NED, and it's going to remind people why they voted for Trump.
Yeah. I mean, that's a risk, too. I think the Democrats should just, if they were smart, they would say very little. They would just say, we're a no. You won the election. You are the majority party. You said you were going to get a budget passed. You have all these goals that you laid out. Let's see you do it. And there is then, at that point, a battle within the Republican Party because they either bring some of these Freedom Caucus lunatics to heel, or they do things that are very unpopular, and that comes with a great political price. Like, that's what the Republicans would do in this situation. The Republicans, if the situation was reversed, the Republicans, who play power politics all day, every day, would say, we're not giving the Democrats any votes on anything. That's it. We're out. You won. Good luck. We're out. And you're going to live with the consequences of what you do. I think that is the smart political move. They're not one to always make the smart political move. That's a big understatement.
Well, somebody cut a video of Democrats speaking against Republicans shutting down the government. And, the chuds are all sharing that around. Just like, look at the hypocrisy. Not really thinking about the hypocrisy that it also exposes of the Republicans, who they're responding to, who were fully prepared to shut down the government. That's what the Democrats are responding to. Republicans were prepared to shut down the government. So aren't you hypocritical to demand that they not use that tactic when you've never been shy about using it yourself? There was a government shutdown a couple of years ago.
Yep.
There was a government shutdown during COVID, right?
Yep. I mean, look, that's the leverage you have as the minority party. Hakeem Jeffries wants to come up here and shrug his shoulders and say, well, what can we do? I'm trying to look for what leverage we have. Well, here's leverage you have.
Right.
You can force a shutdown, because by doing that, you put the ball entirely in their court. They have the majority. If they want to do this thing through reconciliation, they can do it. Make them do it. Because doing that it forces some very difficult decisions and some very difficult processes on their part. That is only going to drive a wedge through their coalition by making them get together and make these high-risk decisions right now. That, to me, is the smart thing to do. And now you want to say, well, what the downside of that is, what if they pass through these cuts? Well, they could pass through these cuts in 6 months, right? I mean, at a certain point, they're going to have to pass a budget at some point. And so, what's it like? Okay, you could kick the can down the road 6 months, or you could just make a stand right now. Just say, we're not voting, we are a no. And that puts the ball in their court, and that's, I think, where you want it right now, if you're a Democrat.
Well, this is part of the problem with having a so-called left party. It's a joke that works for essentially the same interests that the Republicans do. If you had an actual left party, very simple argument right now. Look at what they increased spending for. Defense. Right. Look at where Doge hasn't gone. Right. Pentagon. Have you heard one of them say that? It's the most obvious, easy, simple line of attack. They're running around shaking grandma's purse for loose change, and they haven't set foot in the Pentagon yet. Why haven't they gone to they won't say that because they're owned by the defense contractors also.
Yep.
There is no opposition party. It's theater.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely. 100%. All right. Sanger Ladanyi, thank you for the membership, becoming a YouTube member. And Admiral Adama, you have become a YouTube member as well.
Nice.
Thank you
I am In my opinion, that reboot of Battlestar Galactica, and I was not a fan of the original, is probably the best science fiction TV series of all time, for my money.
Mo MLM says, ay. Thank you for that donation. Appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Killary Hitton over on Rumble says, got banned from a Beatles Facebook group today for posting a well-argued video titled, Is Paul McCartney an Asshole? Sent the group into hyperventilating panic. People are only happy if they're unhappy.
You know, that video came up on my feed, actually. Is Paul McCartney an asshole?
Oh yeah.
I mean that's not like new. That's not like breaking. All right. Quickly, I'll tell you a funny story. All right, so by Strawberry Fields here in New York, the memorial to John Lennon across from the Dakota where he lived and he was shot. You always have these fanatical Beatles fans there, you know, selling merch and playing music, but they're genuine fans. They're not just cashing in. And you know, they have a pitch there, you know, rotating musicians who will play Beatles songs all day, every day. Every day you go there. So I would tell this story when I would give my tours. You know, I remember the day John Lennon was shot. I was 10 years old, and my clearest memory of that day is my mother calling her sister and saying, why couldn't it have been Ringo? Yeah. And I said that in front of the Beatles fanatics. Yeah. And they freaked. What do you got against Ringo? Yeah, why would you say that about Ringo? And I was like, listen, man, be honest. If you could choose which one of them went, what would you choose?
Right, exactly.
That doesn't matter.
Eric Cousseau, seems like Shmuley's getting pegged on his own supply. Ha, good one. Putin says there's nothing for Russia in the U.S. ceasefire proposal. Not good, believe me, not good. If anyone is watching on Rumble with the new app update, the chat didn't disappear. It's conveniently located in the 3 little dots under the bell. At least Rumble is updating. Beautiful. Thank you, Nocturnal Human, for that update. I didn't even know that they were updating. Hey, we got 1,400 strong in the YouTube chat, 658 in the Rumble chat. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Thanks very much for being here today. All right. We are going to move right along. All right. So Mahmoud Khalil's hearing was held yesterday. That's Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. The People's Forum posting some updates throughout the day. There was another very large gathering outside of the courthouse. We'll take a brief look at that.
Lift the siege on Gaza now! Lift the siege on Gaza now! We want justice, you say how? We want justice, you say how? Release Mahmoud Khalil now! Release Mahmoud Khalil now!
All right. And his legal team came out and addressed the press and the crowd. So power to the people. This is Ryan Knight's account. Mahmoud Khalil's lawyer. We intend to fully vindicate not just his First Amendment rights, but the First Amendment rights of all Americans who wish to speak out. So here's his lawyer speaking to the crowd.
Everyone, as we tried to make clear in court today, what happened to Mahmoud Khalil is nothing short of extraordinary and shocking and outrageous. It should outrage anybody who believes that speech should be free in the United States of America. Mr. Khalil is a lawful permanent resident. He was coming home with his U.S. citizen wife, who was 8 months pregnant, and he was taken by U.S. government agents in retaliation, essentially, for exercising his First Amendment rights, for speaking up in defense of Palestinians in Gaza and beyond, for being critical of the U.S. government and of the Israeli government. Those are the reasons why he was targeted. Those are the reasons why he was detained. And that's the reason why the government also moved him to Louisiana in further retaliation for the fact that on the night of his arrest at home, he filed a habeas corpus petition in this court, which he also had a constitutional right to do. In retaliation for that, he was moved to Louisiana to take him away from his lawyers, to take him away from accessing this court, to take him away from his family and his support network. And so every day that Mahmoud spends in detention in Louisiana is a day too long. We and he fully intend to vindicate not just his First Amendment rights, but those of all Americans, frankly, and all lawful permanent residents, and anybody who wants to speak out. It simply cannot be the case that you can be disappeared.
Fairly straightforward stuff. Here's another member of his team addressing the protesters more specifically.
Of moving the fight forward to bring Mahmoud back to New York so that we can fight his case here and get him released back to his 8-month pregnant wife, back to his amazing community, back to all of you. What we did today is we set a schedule. We made clear that this is going to have to be hashed out in the days to come. And that's what's going to happen. So over the course of the next week, we will be fighting to bring him back here, fighting to keep this case in this court, and ultimately fighting to have him released. That's the update.
That's the update. Now, moved from where? Well, of course, he is currently being detained in Louisiana, and the United States government is seeking to move the case to the state of Louisiana because the jurisdiction of Louisiana is the Fifth Circuit, which is a notoriously right-wing court. And so The Hill has this article here. The U.S. government is seeking to move Columbia University graduate Mahmoud Khalil's case from New York, where a hearing into his status happened Wednesday, to Louisiana or New Jersey. Khalil was first held in New Jersey, but was moved to an immigration detention center in Louisiana. The 30-year-old did not attend Wednesday's hearing. Khalil's attorneys are pushing for him to be returned to New York and released under supervision, while attorney Brandon Waterman, representing the Justice Department, argued that the case should be moved to New Jersey or Louisiana because that's where Khalil has been held. If Khalil's case is transferred to Louisiana, it would go through the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, the most conservative court in the country. So that court presides over Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. There are 26 judges on that court, 75% of whom are Republican appointed. 6 of them are Trump appointed. So that would obviously be a worst case scenario. Ramzi Kassem, an attorney for Khalil, raised during the hearing that the legal team hasn't yet been able to have an attorney-client protected phone call with the client. Furman ruled that Khalil's attorneys must be allowed to speak with him at least once for a period of at least an hour on Wednesday and Thursday. Furman also directed both sides to submit a joint letter by Friday at noon Eastern detailing when they plan to submit written arguments in the case. So the attempt now is to have Mahmoud tried outside of New York, where he would have obviously the best chance. New Jersey would be the second best option, but obviously Louisiana, where he's currently being held, would result most likely in a ruling to actually deport him for the crime of what? Well, here are some of Trump's henchmen basically articulating that when you're here on a green card, you're here at our pleasure, and if you say things that we don't like, we have the right to simply get rid of you. So here's Marco Rubio.
Simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
All right, so what he's basically saying is that unless you're born here, you have to basically say what we want you to say, or else we can make you leave, right? Because if you're not a born citizen, then you exist here at our pleasure, even if you're on a green card, right?
Yeah, it sounds like he's making a collusion argument. It's collusion, right? Because there's no evidence of Mahmoud committing any of the acts he's describing of vandalism or violence or blocking anyone from class or intimidating anyone. And he's defining as lunatic screaming people protesting against genocide. I mean, this is their full court press to define protest as, by definition, aid and support for terrorism.
Yep. 100%. And unless you're born here, you don't enjoy First Amendment rights.
Well, that's they're creeping up. They're creeping up on that too.
Exactly. That's for now. So here's Mike Johnson basically saying you either support Israel or shut your fucking mouth or you will be deported. That's Johnny UTD's interpretation. I think that's pretty spot on. So here's Mike Johnson talking about this case as well.
In your estimation, what crime did Mahmoud Khalil commit to warrant his arrest, detention, and the potential revocation of his green card?
Let me tell you something. I went face down the angry mob at Columbia at the height of that stuff. When the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters were there. I'm telling you, this is my own observation, not something I read in a newspaper. It was dangerous. I met with Jewish students before we went to campus who were holed away off campus because they were instructed by the administration not to come to class, which they paid for fear of their physical safety. The administrators there refused to take control of that campus. They refused to allow the PD to come, the police department to come in and take control, and it turned into a chaos.
I'm sorry, what was the question? The question was what?
Yeah.
In your estimation, what crime did Mahmoud Khalil commit to warrant
what
his
crime
arrest?
did he commit? There should be a running clock every time that question is asked of how long it is until they get an answer on that. Notice nothing he just said was an answer.
Well, you got the Nassau County executive who claims to have his own intelligence agents.
Yeah, exactly.
Says he has it on good authority from those imaginary agents that he committed a crime.
No one can say what he did. All right, we're going to skip back ahead to where we left off.
Department to come in and take control, and it turned into a chaos. The president has since been removed, and now they got the same problem again. Columbia and other universities, they have to keep control of campus. The first responsibility of an administration is ensuring the safety of the students who are paying tuition to be there, for crying out loud. This madness has to stop. We have to get control of it. This guy apparently was a mastermind of those very things, when the gnashing of teeth and the ripping of clothes and the people screaming at me, wanting to rip me limb from limb because I was there talking about moral clarity and how there's a right and a wrong. They were doing that. They disrupted the campus. They were threatening physical violence to their fellow students. If you're on a student visa, I'm going to say this clearly. If you are on a student visa and you're in America and you're an aspiring young terrorist who wants to prey upon your Jewish classmates, you're going home.
An aspiring young terrorist. Again, there's no evidence to support any of this. The question was simple. What crime did he commit? What crime is he being accused of? No answer. No answer.
And it's very funny for people who like to. Elon went on a whole tear on Joe Rogan about weaponized empathy. If Zionists are not the masters of weaponized empathy, who is? They've been doing this act forever, just more successfully than now. When I saw Kwame Ture speak when I was in college, there were a bunch of Zionists because he was pro-Palestine, and he spoke about that. There were a bunch of Zionists who stood up in the back, Zionist students waving the flag, stop anti-Semitism, and they're crying. They're crying. There's that famous clip of Norm. You played it again recently, talking about the crocodile tears. You've got the one crying, talking about how he's not going to have what happened to his parents weaponized against the Palestinian people. This is what they do. Everything another phrase they're very fond of. Every accusation is a confession. Well, all of your accusations of weaponized empathy is a confession of what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Now let's go on to Tom Homan here, who was in Albany yesterday. Was in my neck of the woods, going there to powwow with New York congressional Republicans to do something about the sanctuary city laws in cities throughout New York State. And he was asked about the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil. So let's take a look at what he says.
Limitations, but when you go to a college campus, free speech has limitations, but when you go to a college campus, you incite protesting and locking down and taking over buildings and damaging property and handing out leaflets for Hamas, who is a terrorist organization. Coming to this country either on a visa or becoming a resident alien is a great privilege, but there are rules associated with that.
There you go. Now, New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani apparently took an Amtrak up to the state capitol where, hey, he did a little thing called opposition. Opposition. Today, I confronted border czar Tom Homan, who came to Albany to do Trump's bidding, push for mass deportations, carry out the assault on working-class New Yorkers, and justify the unjustifiable detention of legal permanent resident and father-to-be Mahmoud Khalil. So here's Mamdani.
How many more New Yorkers? How many more New Yorkers will you detain? How many more New Yorkers without charge? Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
When we asked Tom Homan, all he had to answer for that cruelty was a smirk. Because there is no answer for taking a man from his pregnant wife, who is due to deliver their newborn child in a month, from their Columbia University apartment, a day after that same man, Mahmoud Khalil, wrote to Columbia University and said he feared for his life. The cowardice that is on display across our city and our state is unacceptable. That's right. New Yorkers are looking to us. They are looking to their leaders for courage and for conviction. And what they are finding instead is collaboration. And that is just simply unacceptable.
See, that's what a member of an opposition party looks like. That's what you do when you're the opposition party. You don't, I disagree with what Mahmoud Khalil is saying, but I do think he has to be charged with something before he can be deported. That's Chuck Schumer. And then Hakeem Jeffries issued a similar statement where he spent the first half of his statement condemning the Trump administration, condemning Mahmoud Khalil. Like, they spent the first few paragraphs of their statements talking about how much they don't like him or what he's about, or they don't like what he stands for. That's actual opposition. And this is a major test. It comes less than 100 days in to Trump's term. This is a major test of the system. This is a major test of the judiciary's ability to provide some check, because it's my opinion that if he is tried in Louisiana, he will be deported. Right. And, so now we have a major test here very, very early on.
I would imagine they'll argue it to the Supreme Court, which is not a fait accompli. I mean, look what just happened with the funding.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there is a chance that it'll be blocked at that level. You're absolutely right. But like I said, this is a big test. This is a big test here, and it comes very early on. And this is really a fork in the road for anyone who, was holding out hope that this administration would be fruitful in any real way. I mean, like I said on RBN last night, when you take a driver's test, if you kiss the curb while parking, that's an automatic fail. This right here is an automatic fail. What they're doing to this guy is just so outrageous, based on nothing at all, based on expressing an opinion that the government does not like. It is a speech crime. It is true that green card holders are subject to deportation if they are convicted of a serious crime. He has not even been accused of a serious crime.
Right. A lot of people who have supported Trump are fond of the phrase "promises made, promises kept." I have to agree with them here. This is exactly what they said they would do. That's why I didn't understand why so many free speech advocates were coming all over themselves about J.D. Vance's speech, which clearly omitted this entire subject. Like, they promised they were going to weaponize the FBI and the Justice Department against protest. That's exactly what they said they would do. Here we are. That's what they're doing. So why would you look what J.D. Vance said to those Europeans? Like, look what he didn't say. Look what he didn't say. I get it. Look, man, we've done a lot of stories over the years about the way they were outlawing politically incorrect speech in England. Like, yeah, I get it, man. I would argue this is more egregious than that. At least as egregious as that. And they promised you that this was an area where they were going to light the First Amendment on fire. And that's what they're doing. At that point, as Keaton says, it's an automatic fail. Like, I don't care you're speaking out about the Digital Services Act. I don't agree with that. I think it's horrible. It's easy for them to speak out about that because that's the kind of thing that they're never going to run afoul of.
Right. And that was as obvious as could be from before day one. I mean, as soon as it was obvious that there was not going to be any Israel dissent allowed once you heard that Trump was running and that Trump won. The man is owned by Israel. The man got paid $100 million by Miriam Adelson. He is a Manchurian candidate for Israel, not for Russia, but for Israel. We went over this on RBN last night. There was the
They've
Nation
always
put
been
out
pointing in the wrong direction. Yes.
Right. The Nation put out a pretty comprehensive report saying that there was, in fact, collusion in 2016 between Trump and a foreign power. It's just that Russia was not the foreign power. Israel was the foreign power. He is completely owned by Israel. So just that alone. Once you saw videos of Pam Bondi talking about this kind of draconian crackdown on student protesters, you can't really say this was a betrayal of what he ran on, or or even a betrayal of your expectations. If you had your eyes open, you knew this was coming, and if you believe, as I do, that this is an automatic fail, well, at that point, now it's shit or get off the pot time, right? It can't be, well, we're going to keep working with them where we can. No, at this point, it is time to be in opposition to this administration, like this guy.
How many more New Yorkers without charge? Do you believe in the First Amendment?
That is what the Democrat response should be.
Well, and this is,
and it won't be, and he's not going to place above 10% in the polls, by the way.
I was just going to say, Mamdani, for anybody who doesn't know, he's running for mayor of New York. This is why I have nothing but contempt for Democrats, liberals, because I live in New York. New York and LA and San Francisco are probably really the neoliberal shit lib homeworlds of that real, Clintonian kind of neoliberal. They're much more likely to nominate Andrew Cuomo, a obvious criminal, and I'm not even talking about the sexual assault accusations that drove him from office. I'm talking about getting bribed by the hospital lobbies to kill the elderly by putting them into nursing homes with no liability. I'm talking about using his staff to write his memoir that he was getting paid $5 million for. I'm talking about him using state troopers at the height of COVID when nobody could get a test to personally escort family members and test results back and forth. Andrew Cuomo is a criminal. He is a criminal. He should be in jail. New York Democrats will sooner nominate him than a man of conviction like Mamdani. That's their resistance.
Yep, exactly. And Andrew Cuomo also on the legal team of Benjamin Netanyahu defending him against war crimes charges. And that is who is overwhelmingly likely to win, not Mamdani, not the guy who's actually being a responsible opposition candidate. That's all that is. That's just being responsible. That's just doing your job.
Look, they're pushing it to the point now. We talked about this a little on RBN yesterday too. They're pushing it to the point that a lot of people who were trying to gas up this administration around the Digital Services Act and that kind of thing, they're being forced to acknowledge this is not a free speech administration. This is not a solution. These people are not really, in the end, any better than Wasserman, Schmuck, and Plaskett. It's just a different flavor of suppression. And this is where people are going to be forced to make a choice. Are you going to go into opposition on this administration, or are you gonna keep pretending that this administration is something it's not because of audience capture, or because you like their style better than the Democrats, or because the Democrats hurt your feelings, or whatever? You can be in opposition to both things. You can be in opposition to the entire uniparty. You don't actually have to join a team. I understand it is like you're trapped between two mafia families, and you almost feel like you have to swear allegiance to one in order to avoid being a victim of the other. I think that's happened to a lot of people like Tulsi, like Bobby, who had the Democrats come after them. They just said, to hell with it. I'll compromise everything I claim to believe in, because these guys are going to end up putting me in jail, or they're going to destroy my life, or I'm going to be living in a cardboard box. I get it, man. But past a certain point, you have to decide, what are you made of? Are you really in opposition to assaults on the First Amendment, or only certain assaults on the First Amendment.
Exactly. All right. One free man. It's actually legal to call for violence as long as it doesn't incite an imminent act of violence, as stated in this precedent case Glenn covered. Yeah, if it's an opinion, you can express an opinion. You just cannot make direct threats or incitements. Yes, absolutely. That is legal. Noah Goop, Nancy Mace was talking to that guy the way you talk to your dog before taking him to the vet for euthanasia. God, get in the car.
Christy Nome was right behind her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was the muscle, right? All right. Space 99 Yak. Most of you Jewish peoples don't know a Messiah when you see him. It could be plastered all over your X feed and you will still miss it. God sent his hippie son first. Now he sent his autistic son. That's right. Thank you, Space 99. Appreciate that. Alphonse the Aborted. Last year I wrote Biden to tell him I wasn't paying federal taxes to fund the genocide, thinking this year that I might have to leave the country. Wish me luck. Been grateful to you guys. Thank you, Alphonse. Thank you. And I do wish you luck, whatever you decide to do. Thank you very much, of course. All right. Why don't we take care of a little business? We got an offer from CBD. So, Russell, you just got to put yourself in the back room for a minute, and we'll be right back.
All right, hang on. I gotta find me. Where am I?
There you go. Yeah. There you are. Here, I can do it. I see it. All right. All right, everybody. So CB Distillery's VIP sale is on for a few days only. You can save up to 50% off everything on their site with code RUMBLE, RUMBLE, of course. If better sleep, less stress, and pain relief after exercise sound good to you, you need to hear about CBD from CB Distillery. They have plant-based solutions for just about everything: sleep, stress, mood, and focus, even pain after exercise, all made with high-quality, clean ingredients. They even do have CBD for pets. So many of you are already feeling the difference, especially with their sleep products. Those are some of their best reviewed products. I first started using CBD about 4 years ago, and I was having interrupted sleep just about every night, and it definitely helped me out. Now, personally, my favorite products are the oils, the tinctures, and the oils, but this is a really handy thing here. As you can see, these are their soft gels. So these come in pre-dosed 30 milligram gels, which is great because they don't taste like anything. So if that's a barrier to you, these are tasteless. Just pop them in your mouth, wash them down with water, and you're done. The other nifty thing about these is they're pre-dosed, so you don't have to measure the way you would measure an oil. These just come 30 milligrams at a time, which is a great starter dose. So this is a great starter product here, which are the soft gels. Soft gels, oils, gummies for sleep, stress, pain. They have a very full product line, already very reasonably priced. So this is really an unbelievable deal that you're getting here, up to 50% off what are already some of the best priced CBD products on the market. So if you're still tossing and turning at night or struggling with another health concern, make the change to CB Distillery. And now's your chance to save big with code RUMBLE. But this deal won't be around long, so don't wait. Visit cbdistillery.com and enter code RUMBLE to save up to 50% on everything. A store-wide sale. That's cbdistillery.com, code RUMBLE. cbdistillery.com. You can scan that QR code. There's also a link to their site in the comments. So cbdistillery.com, promo code RUMBLE. Not available in Idaho, Iowa, and South Dakota. So sorry, dissidents there, but available everywhere else. That's cbdistillery.com. All right. Russell, come back. There you are. Beautiful. All right. I think we nailed that.
Yeah. That was better than Cats.
Yeah, it was better than Cats. Yes.
Exactly. I laughed. I cried.
Yes, indeed. Hey, we got 1,600 in the YouTube chat, 809 strong in the Rumble chat. Smash that like button, everybody. Smash that subscribe button and that follow button. Let's move right along. All right, so this was a funny one. The Trump and Elon car model show.
Yep. Buy one, get one free.
There you go.
All right. This has been a very tough year for Elon and Tesla. Tesla faces vandalism and protest. My favorite thing here is the quote at the bottom. I'm getting Nazi salutes from Subarus. Tesla drivers targeted by anti-Elon Musk sentiment. Tesla protests are getting bigger and rowdier. Sales are getting destroyed overseas. Sales in Germany down 59.5% in January, 76.3% in February. In Australia, 65.5% first 2 months of the year. February 2025 in China, 49.16% sales drop. Here in the U.S., not as bad as overseas, still not good. Believe me, not good. Tesla U.S. registrations dipped 11% in January, the latest sign of demand weakness and consumer backlash. Now, part of the reason for that, a lot of people are saying, at least for overseas, we can't buy them here because we're protecting the American market against China's, some say, superior product. Tesla versus BYD. Tesla stock crashes over 50% from highs. Tesla and BYD are the world's largest electric vehicle makers. In 2022, China EV and battery giant BYD's vehicle sales raced ahead of Tesla's and are now well more than twice as high, 3 times as much in Q4 2024. For all battery electric vehicles, BYD seized the crown in Q4, though Tesla led by a hair for 2024. Both Tesla and BYD set quarterly delivery records in Q4, but Tesla's annual deliveries fell for the first time. Tesla earnings came in light, even with a Bitcoin boost. So we've had a lot of our viewers who have experienced BYDs who live overseas say they're much better. I have no personal experience of that. That's just anecdotal. But here, if you look at non-Western countries, because even in Europe, they have tariffs against BYD. So their price is much inflated, suppressing their sales. But if you look at countries that don't have 35% tariffs as they do in Europe against BYD, these cars are much, much cheaper than Teslas. The dark blue line is the Tesla price, the light blue line, the BYD. China, you can get a BYD for $9,614. Malaysia, $22,500, while a Tesla is $48,724. The only non-Western country listed here where they're about comparable is Singapore, even Japan. Much, much cheaper to buy a BYD. And a lot of very smart people are saying it's actually a better car. I can't say. I haven't driven one. And then you have this site, Tesla Takedown. That's teslatakedown.com, which is organizing. They really should. Which is organizing boycotts, which our illustrious president doesn't seem to understand the First Amendment in many areas. He doesn't understand it regarding pro-Palestine protest. He doesn't understand it regarding the protections that people in the country legally enjoy, which are the same exact protections as Americans enjoy, First Amendment protections. But he seems to think boycotting is illegal, except when it's against Bud Light, Target, and so on. To Republicans, conservatives, and all great Americans, Elon Musk is putting it on the line in order to help our nation, and he is doing a fantastic job. But the radical left lunatics, as they often do, are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla. What the hell is he talking about? Collusively? Boycotts are as American as sexual assault. I mean, what is he talking about? It's as American as Jeffrey Epstein.
And they kind of have to be collusive. Is that not the point?
Yeah, well, exactly, right? You're going to organize a boycott. That's why they call it organizing a boycott.
Right.
But Elon retweets it, not being any great lover of the Constitution himself, to be sure. Thank you, President Donald Trump. Now, not right around this time, Tesla collapsed about 15% in the market. So Trump felt like he had to step in and do something to save his buddy, to save Elon. So he bought a Tesla and made a big show of it. They did a big press event. Let's hear what he said.
President Trump, are you looking to buy or lease today?
Well, I'm going to buy. And I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets. And number two, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this. I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people. And I just want people to know that you can't be penalized for being a patriot. And he's a great patriot. And he's also done an incredible job with Tesla. And, I mean, nobody else has a car company started up in the last 30 years that's been successful. I don't think so. And not only successful, but super successful. And because he's able to find billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud and waste and all of the things, I mean, our country is going to be very strong very soon because of a lot of the things that he's done and a lot of the things that I'm doing. And there's no better team, but there's no better for what we're doing. There's nobody like this, and he shouldn't be penalized. And when I watched the other day, I said, I can't believe it. It should be the opposite. People should be going wild, and they love the product, but because he's finding all sorts of terrible things that have taken place against our country, they want to penalize him in an economic sense. And I just think that's very unfair. So I just wanted to make a statement. I'm going to buy one. Now, here's the bad news. I'm not allowed to drive because I haven't driven a car in a long time, and I love to drive cars. But I'm going to have it at the White House, and I'm going to let my staff use it. I'm going to let people at the place use it. And they all are all excited about that. I'm not allowed to use it. Can you believe it? One of my great things in life is that I can, you know, I like to drive cars, but I'm not allowed to.
Okay, so what he's talking about there, this is kind of an interesting bit of trivia. Presidents are not allowed to drive on public roads.
That's interesting.
He's literally not allowed to drive the car.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I guess if they took it to a parking lot, he'd be allowed to drive it, but a president cannot drive on public roads.
That's interesting.
So yeah, so that's what he's referencing there. You know, so he's talking about all this money that Doge is saving us. But hey, nobody really knows because Doge kept getting exposed when they had their wall of receipts that were going to be completely transparent. And people kept digging into these receipts they were showing and finding these are contracts that were canceled under Biden. Some of the numbers were just completely wrong. So now their solution to that, instead of being more accurate, is to make it impossible to trace their claims. Doge makes its latest errors harder to find. Elon Musk's group obscured the details of some new claims on its website despite promises of transparency. Okay, so originally they had the contract number, so you could trace that back very easily. Then they got rid of the contract number, but journalists found they still had the code embedded that would allow you to trace back the source. So now they scrubbed that. That is really radical transparency. Didn't they promise complete transparency of everything they were doing? So they got caught not knowing what they were doing, and their solution is to make it impossible to check their work. So now anything they say about billions of dollars saved, you're going to have no idea. You can assume based on the history it's going to be bullshit, but you're not going to know exactly how or why anymore.
Right.
So Elon really appreciated Big Papa stepping up to try to save his failing car company. So he made a promise of his own.
I have an announcement to make that would be helpful. I want to say, as a function of the great policies of President Trump and his administration, and as an act of faith in America, Tesla is going to double vehicle output in the United States within the next 2 years. Double.
A big deal.
That's a big deal.
And by the way, he makes one car. This one I don't understand. This one I don't want, but that's okay. Without a steering wheel. It comes out next year, right?
Yes.
Explain that, please.
Yes. Well, the Cybercab starts production.
I won't get in it.
Next year, and
that's a hell of a lead-in.
We have so much confidence in the self-driving nature of it that it will actually not have a steering wheel. It will not have pedals. It'll either self-drive or not drive at all. But it'll self-drive.
And I'm going to pass on that particular.
He tells him, "Hey, here's this fucking crazy thing you're working on that I wouldn't get in that for $1
Yeah,
million."
I wouldn't get in that if you paid me as much as Elon has in his bank account.
Exactly. But tell him about this. Tell him about this crazy shit you're working on. Go ahead, Elon. Tell him about this crazy shit you're working on that I would never use in a million years. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I don't get why anyone would believe that Elon's going to double Tesla production in the United States, given that Tesla sales are collapsing worldwide, including in the United States. But Elon has a long history of making promises he doesn't keep, including promises about self-driving cars, which our illustrious president seems to have some awareness of. Now, this article, we're not going to go into it, but you can look it up. Elon Musk has been promising self-driving cars for 10 years. Update. We are now on year 11, and indeed, that's true. There's a long history of Elon saying he's going to do things he doesn't do, and that he has mastered technological problems that they haven't even begun to solve. Here's Elon in 2016, January 10th, 2016. In 2 years, Summon, the idea was you'd be able to call your car remotely and it would come to you. Summon, it'd be like Knight Rider. Summon should work anywhere connected by land and not blocked by borders. E.g., you're in LA and the car is in New York. It was in 2016. He said you were going to be able to summon your car from across the country and it would be able to self-drive to you. This is more recent. Again, you can look this up. This is from mid-January. Elon Musk misrepresents data that shows Tesla is still years away from unsupervised self-driving. Now, what the author says is the data Elon is claiming shows that they've mastered it and they're ready to release these cars without steering wheels and pedals are actually based on using the same exact highway track for years and training the model on it, not city driving, not real world conditions that a robocab would face. So make of that what you will, but given Elon's track record, I'm siding with the author of the article. Here's another broken promise. Elon Musk initially said the Cybertruck would cost from $39,900. You can't buy it for much less than $100,000. So Elon has a very long track record of promising things he doesn't do. So I wouldn't hold my breath for him doubling production in the United States at a time when his car company brand has been damaged, probably irrevocably. I don't think Tesla will ever be able to quite recover from it. Whatever its future as a company, it's never going to be able to claim the market share it once had, in my opinion. So here, they asked Trump about these terrible things that are happening to his buddy Elon's dealerships.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, Mr. President, you talked about some of the violence that's been going on around the country at dealerships. Some say they should be labeled domestic terrorists because
I will do that. I'll do it. I'm going to stop them. We catch anybody doing it because they're harming a great American company. You know, I've stuck up for the NFL. I've stuck up for a lot of American companies and other companies, but American companies. I did
not Bud Light, not Bud Light, not Target.
An American company, especially a company like this, supplies so many jobs that others are unable to do. When you do that, those people are going to go through a big problem when we catch them. And we have you get a lot of cameras up. We already know who some of them are, and we're going to catch them. And they're bad guys. They're the same guys that screw around with our schools and universities, the same garbage. And no, we're going to catch them. And let me tell you, you do it to Tesla and you do it to any company, we're going to catch you and you're going to go through hell.
Yeah. All right. So vandalism is already against the law.
Right.
It's already illegal. It's already a crime. He wants to escalate vandalism against Tesla specifically, uniquely, of any product in the country. Whatever he's saying about he'd do it for anybody. He hasn't. Right. Other companies have faced vandalism and public backlash. No, uniquely Tesla, he wants to escalate vandalism crimes to terrorism. to terrorism. Now, it's a very short step from that, and I'm going to predict this right here. They're going to start to take people who are just protesting, who are not doing vandalism, who might be standing in the door of a Tesla dealership, and they're going to arrest them and charge them with terrorism and see how much they can get away with in the courts.
Well, yeah, that's what they're doing to Mahmoud. Right? They have not leveled
right
an
now.
accusation
Everyone's saying
against
you're
him.
not an American citizen. You don't have those rights. Well, what do you? They're. It's just one. It's the frog in the pot of boiling water. They're trying to get you used to the idea of arresting people for dissent. They're getting there one little step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that it would fall under terrorism is just absolutely absurd. Every boycott is politically motivated. So you can't say because the Tesla boycotts are politically motivated, that means terrorism?
Right.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, every boycott is politically motivated. You could say that the Bud Light boycott, was terrorism because you're attempting to, hurt a company that supports the LGBTQ, whatever. You could always make that argument if you wanted to, but it's absurd. It's a crazy argument.
Well, that's where he's telling on himself because, I've seen people saying it is terrorism to attack a Tesla dealership. But then he also said that it's illegal to boycott, that it's collusion. So in his mind, this is all one thing. What makes you think they're not going to connect the one with the other and call it all terrorism? That's clearly the direction that they want to go in.
Right.
So Trump couldn't give it a test drive, but he did get in.
I'll watch Secret Service go crazy. Thank you.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be well.
It's a beautiful car.
That's beautiful.
That's
it's
beautiful.
A different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Wow. He's very impressed. Very impressed. Has no idea how to drive it, but he's very impressed.
Car starts rocking.
So, hey, we did a whole segment that got mistakenly pulled down by YouTube. I thought it was very specious just because they had a Nazi rally in the 30s at Madison Square Garden to make that comparison. But this one is worth reporting on. A lot of people pointed out that Hitler also had a big donor, Porsche, who had donated quite a lot of money to him, whose cars he promoted. The Volkswagen, supposed to be folk. It's the folk wagon, right? It's the car for the average person. Got his big donor and supporter, Porsche, to design this car and then promote it. Adolf Hitler did this 89 years before, I guess they mean Trump, this 1935 VW prototype. Uncanny, Hitler could not drive either, just like Trump. Now, that's not true. He's just not allowed to drive.
Right.
I would imagine back then, 1935, a lot of people couldn't drive and didn't have a driver's license. Hitler helping one of his biggest donors sell a car in 1938. History doesn't change. It just repeats. And that's Porsche there with him. And somebody put the pictures side by side. So, hey, man, like I said, I don't want to succumb to Godwin's law, make of it what you will, but it is pretty funny.
It's funny.
That Hitler went out of his way to promote the car of one of his donors and supporters.
It's a great company.
It is a wonderful company. Buy the car. Buy the car right now. Now here's
making one with no steering wheel come out next year.
I would not get in it for $1 million. So here's Steve Wozniak talking about how terrible a product Tesla is, and how Elon lied to everybody about automating driving, about his self-driving technology. So let's take a look at that. And he also says he was banned from X after this interview. Oops, sorry about that. There we go.
Is unfortunately I'm biased against him because I own a Tesla, and I've had Teslas, and I've spoken on national TV shows about how he lied to us about driving himself across the country by the end of 2016 and then by the end of 2017. And he got money from us, stole money from us to try to upgrade to the one that would do it when they wouldn't. And I've spoken that way. Well, guess what happened? My X account got blocked 2 or 3 months ago, and I follow every single step to prove that I'm really who I am, and I can't get it unblocked. I don't know if they're doing that deliberately, but I never really posted on X. I never, ever violated any rule or anything. But maybe it's because I was on the wrong side of Elon. I haven't even talked about how bad the Teslas are. Every step up where they changed things in the car, it got worse and worse and worse. And now it is just miserable for user interface. Coming from Apple, user interface, the way you deal with technology is the most important thing in the world to me. And Tesla is the worst in the world at that. Nothing makes sense in that car intuitively. I mean, you have to go searching in menus until you stumble into finding it. It's horrible. I definitely think that we should look for inefficiencies in government, just mass firings. Not good for a business to run that way. So it should be done, I guess, more surgically with a scalpel instead of a sledge.
Yeah, so Steve Wozniak, certainly no socialist, certainly no communist, coming from a business perspective, telling you, hey, even in a business, you don't just mass fire people like that. It's not an efficient way to do things. And calling into question the whole myth that Elon has built around himself, that he's this brilliant engineer, entrepreneur, visionary, when really he's a very slick businessman who's very good at exploiting tax loopholes and getting government grants, tax breaks, and incentives. But if you actually look at his products, some very smart people like Steve Wozniak are saying his products are shit. And really, it's a smokescreen. He's been very good at marketing himself as the brand and using that. What he's saying here is you stole from us because you got people to buy this car on a promise of things that you never did. And you could argue that about the stock price. The stock price is based on accomplishments that he's continually said are just around the corner that never came around. Now, what seems to be happening now, because of his political association with Donald Trump, because of the way he's rifling through the government in a way that I think increasingly is being revealed as incompetent, it's making people look at all of his products and say, hang on a second, how good are his products if this is how he's handling this assignment to try to refine the government? And people are realizing it's a lot of bullshit. And that is why I say I don't think Tesla really recovers, because I think the more you look at it, the worse it's going to be.
Yeah, and you would think the president accusing people of committing crimes for boycotting, terrorism, for vandalizing, and yes, vandalizing is a crime. I'm not saying it's okay to go and light shit on fire or spray paint things, but that's a crime. That's not an act of terrorism. Those are that's a hugely important distinction for very obvious reasons. I can't imagine that's going to be great for his brand. I can't imagine he is going to have much of a brand in just a few months. I mean, his brand is already in the tank as a person. His favorability rating is in the 30s. What happens when the economy goes to shit? What happens if there is a recession, as even Trump is saying, hey, heads up, that is a very real possibility in a relatively short amount of time. His brand is garbage already, and I think it's going to be even worse. And the fact that, it's funny. Trump is just naturally funny. But coming up there and saying, I'm going to make it hell for these people who protest Tesla? Because I think you're right. I think people who protest peacefully, who don't vandalize, who don't cause any property damage or anything, are going to get mixed up in this. They're clearly, every story of these past few weeks has been them escalating attacks on ordinary people, one group at a time, one designation at a time, right? From illegal immigrants to student visas to green card holders to protesters to boycotters to vandals, right? It's just you see them going one step at a time, seeing how far they could take it, because there are going to be court challenges along the way. And the big question across all of these issues is, what role will the courts play? And will they just defy the courts at any time? Now, so far, they're saying they're not doing that when it comes to the Doge stuff. What about when it comes to this stuff? I mean, the executive already has broad authority when it comes to matters of national security, especially post-Patriot Act. You know, they had broad orders regarding immigration, you know, for decades prior, obviously.
Which, by the way, not to break your flow, but quickly, I was doing some research on Khalil, and just as everyone is always warned about how they'd weaponize the Patriot Act, it's a clause in the Patriot Act that they're using to try to deport him.
I'm sure there is. And so, yeah, I mean, the real question is going to be, you know, A, do the courts rule consistent with the Constitution? And B, does the administration just decide to try and jump over them at some point?
Right.
If they feel the stakes are high enough and they feel that they can. All right. Tanya Bosco, much love to DD and audience from a Catalan living in Grey, Belgium. Free Palestine. Arriba el pueblo argentino. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate that very much. The Yuppies, thanks for the $5. As always, you gentlemen fill me with hope. Well, thank you. Thank you for your humor and willingness to keep up with all the lunacy. Well, that's our job. Absolutely. Thank you. Because
that's the gig.
That's the gig. Thanks for the $9.99 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Let's see here. Okay, we got Nocturnal Human. I think calling MAGA amigo, assholes making Israel great only, would be great since they hate immigrants. There you go. Amigo, that's a good one. Assholes making Israel great only. I like that. Good one, Nocturnal Human. Ellen Jimerson, supporter, and I hate to say it, but Rubio is correct. Green card holders can be and are deported. Same risk with DACA. Rubio's argument about free speech is way off, however. We all have free speech. Remember when Biden subsumed free speech into terrorism and DHS? Well, yeah, green card holders are subject to deportation in certain circumstances where obviously citizens are not. But they have not been at all specific about what this guy did.
Right.
They were associating
he didn't commit a crime.
He didn't commit a crime, or even like in an instance that doesn't necessarily rise to criminality. You know, if you speak in a way that provides, and I don't even want to say these words here on YouTube, but you know, material support. Get where I'm going with that, right? You know, like they haven't even accused him of anything that rises to that level. They've made no specific accusation against him. They have simply said he is a part of a movement that they consider a terrorist sympathizing movement. There's no video of this guy saying it. They have not pointed to anything he said or done. Not one thing that this man has actually said or done with any documentation whatsoever. But you are right. Obviously, you know this issue much better than we do. And yes, you're right. Like, green card holders can be deported under extreme circumstances. But they have not even outlined what those circumstances are as it pertains to Mahmoud. They haven't made any specific allegation against him at all. When asked about this, all they do is say, well, I was at the encampment and it was scary. The question was, what did this man who's sitting in a jail 1,000 miles away from home, what did he do to deserve being in that jail? They have no answer for that. None. If only Trump wouldn't have snuck repealing habeas corpus into that 2012 NDAA. Oh, wait. Judy Denmark, just wait. The next step is to revoke naturalized citizenship and then deporting American citizens. Yeah, they'll take it. They'll take it as far as they have to. Absolutely, 100%. No doubt. All right, folks, here's another South Africa story. This is a story that we wanted to do for the last 4 or 5 days, and it got pushed out of the news cycle, but we swore we would do it today. And since we just did a segment on Elon, we figure we have to do this. So the new Trump policy is apparently open borders for white South African refugees. Yes, that is apparently the new policy there. That's what you signed up for, right? That's what MAGA voted for. Open borders for certain types of people from certain countries under certain circumstances, right? South Africa is being terrible. Plus, I don't know what plus means. South Africa is terrible, plus to longtime farmers in the country. I don't know if it's a typo, whatever. They are confiscating their land and farms, and much worse than that. A bad place to be right now, and we are stopping all federal funding. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately. That's right. Trump offers pathway to citizenship for South African farmers and their families. President Trump is offering an expedited pathway to U.S. citizenship to some South African farmers, calling their treatment in the country terrible. Trump signed an executive order last month halting federal aid to South Africa over property laws he said impose unjust racial discrimination against white Afrikaner farmers. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa, this quotes the tweet we just read, seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately. This apparently has begun. The agencies have started paving the way for this as of last night. He didn't provide additional details about the immediate plan, but Trump wrote in his February order that the U.S. would promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation, and directed his secretaries of state and Homeland Security to prioritize their resettlement through the United States Refugee Admissions Program. Afrikaners are a white, predominantly Dutch ethnic group. Like who? Who's the guy who sells the cars with the no steering wheel? That make up less than 7% of South Africa's total population. The South African government has rejected claims of racial discrimination and accused Trump of having a distorted take on its land law that went into effect in January, which we covered, by the way, at the time. They cannot simply confiscate land for no reason. They have to prove that it's in the public interest to do so, and they still have to offer the landowner something for the land. There's a process that they have to go through. It is not dissimilar totally from our eminent domain laws. In fact, I think it's actually kinder to the landowner than some of our eminent domain laws, which do say that, yes, under certain circumstances, the government can just take your land. So it is actually kinder than that. The majority black country's parliament passed the law due to redress the results of past racial discriminatory laws or practices, including apartheid and European colonialism. It's currently being challenged in court, and, importantly, no land has been taken. That's right. No land has been taken. So before we go a little bit further into why this Land Redistribution Act is being proposed, I just think it's important to remind people that almost every immigrant who shows up at our southern border is fleeing unsafe living conditions, or they wouldn't be coming here. Right. The idea that, like, white South African farmers live in particular danger and therefore they should be accepted because there's a safety threat where they come from. What do you think it's like to live in Honduras under gang rule? What do you think it's like to live in Venezuela under heavy crippling sanctions? What do you think it's like to live in all of these countries who we have sabotaged south of the border? Almost everybody who comes here because they think it's unsafe to live where they are.
Right. This keeps reminding me. Anise wrote a very good article after the election, and one of the things he said in it was, nobody has been louder than I have about not seeing MAGA as a racist movement, but now that I drove around the country, I see that it is, and and they deserve everything they get, and I hope they get it. I gotta say, man, the last time that we covered this, and I still would not, and I'm sure he wouldn't say everybody in that is true of, but it's not a negligible portion of that movement, because when we covered this last time, you got all these butt-hurt white dudes freaking out about a country they couldn't find on a fucking map to save their life, and land policy that they never heard of, until coincidentally a white South African who shoved his hand up the president's ass and puppets his mouth every time he speaks, all of a sudden wants to make this something that you, probably a working guy without a pot to piss in, is very passionate about. Very much, it reminds me of the CFPB thing. These are things you knew nothing about until you were told that you care a lot about it. Now, when you look at the vitriol that people have around this subject, you're going to come and say that your ideas about immigration are not racist. They're not based in race. Then why aren't you like, fuck them? That's their country. Let them. Exactly. That's what you say about the other immigrants. So why uniquely do you care about the plight of white South African farmers when, by contrast, you do not care about the plight of people south of our southern border who largely are fleeing conditions of our own making as a nation? You don't care about their conditions, and they could more strongly argue than these white farmers who, as the article tells you, have not actually had any land taken, could much more valid, make a much more valid claim that they're in danger, that they're being persecuted. You're so eager to send these people back to those countries, and yet you're so ready to embrace white South Africans, and then you want to claim that it's unfair to say that you're a racist?
Of course. And some of the real yahoos, what they'll try to do, I've heard it argued on X, well, the reason we let the South African farmers in is because they're victims of discrimination in their home countries, whereas the people south of the border are not victims of discrimination. Well, that's easy to point to a country that's, known for, recent period of intense racial strife to then say, well, there's a white minority there that's being persecuted. Whereas in Venezuela, it's, not as racially heterogeneous, obviously. But to counter that ridiculous argument, I would say, okay, well, then fine.
Of that there, though.
There is colorism and all that, yeah.
There's colorism, yeah.
But I would just say to that, okay, fine. Then why don't we admit transgender Venezuelan migrants then? Would you be okay with that? If they're being discriminated in Venezuela, we have a policy where we grant refugee status to trans Venezuelan migrants. Would you be okay with that? I don't think so. But let's dig into this a little bit more because this is kind of amazing. So Reuters did a good piece about this. The stark divide that South Africa's Land Act seeks to bridge. So this is back in early February, shortly after this was in the news. The township of Fatang-Sou-Ncho, that's a tough one, houses some 7,000 black South Africans. Its huddle of corrugated metal roofs surrounded on all sides by vast tracts of mostly empty grassland owned by prosperous white farmers. The contrast illustrates the gaping land inequalities that persist more than 3 decades after the end of white minority rule, and which an Expropriation Act President Cyril Ramaphosa signed last month partly seeks to redress. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we're going to show you an image of what they're talking about. So there's the village, the houses, that's where the black people live, and all that beautiful land surrounding the village, that's all white-owned land. So that is a great visual representation of what we're talking about and why the South African government is taking it upon itself not to confiscate land, but to give itself the option of taking land in the public interest after making a deal with the owners of that land. Spokesperson for South Africa's Department of International Affairs, Crispin Fury, said it was false that the act enabled land seizure or confiscation. This misrepresentation fuels unwarranted fears that white South Africans are being targeted, he said. The expanses of white-owned land in Free State Province, dotted with tiny black settlements like Fatang, illustrate why proponents deem the act necessary. Yes, I would say so. The mostly white-owned farms around here are among the nearly 26 million hectares, about 3/4 of privately owned land, still in the hands of whites, who make up 8% of the population. Only 4% of privately held land is owned by blacks, who are nearly 80% of South Africa's 60 million population. So 8% of the population owns 3/4 of the land. 4% of the 4% of privately held land is owned by the majority black population. That's a pretty startling unequal distribution of land. South Africa is the most unequal country in the world in terms of wealth disparity, most unequal. And yes, it is largely race-based. So this was a study by Africa Check done in 2015. The number of people living in poverty in South Africa by population group, 64% of the Black African population lives in poverty. Only 1% of the white population lives in poverty. 1%. A more recent study in 2020 by Amnesty International, nearly half of Black South Africans are considered to be below the poverty line compared to less than 1% of the white population. In America, the Black poverty rate is 18%. The white poverty rate is 8%. We consider that to be bad. The fact that Black poverty is more than double white poverty. In South Africa, Black poverty is 50 fucking times white poverty. 50 times. The white poverty rate is 1%. The Black poverty rate, 50%. 50%. And you're going to fucking screech that white farmers are being discriminated against and therefore they should have refugee status here? I mean, it's an absolute joke. It's an absolute joke. And there is this thing where they talk, we could do this in a different segment. I didn't want to muddy this up. But there's this idea of violence against the white farmers. First of all, there are land disputes, which can turn violent. We don't condone violence, obviously. But also, a lot of these white farmers don't even hire the Black Africans to work the farms. They hire illegal immigrants to work the farms. They pay them pennies, sometimes not at all, and they threaten to go to the immigration authorities to have them deported if they make a stink about it, and that results in violence. Once again, I don't condone violence, but that's where a lot of that comes from. So this idea that the white population of South Africa is this persecuted minority that's being violently attacked and having their land stolen from them is nonsense. It's nonsense. Now, I don't support violence. I don't support violence, just to be, on the level. But if South Africa had a policy of confiscating land and giving it to the Black population, I wouldn't really be against that, given these numbers. 50 times the poverty rate, the Black poverty rate, 50 times that of the white poverty rate, 30 years out of apartheid. Clearly, the economic legacy of apartheid has not been undone at all.
Right.
At all.
Yes. And this is what's really remarkable about people jumping up and down about this, which I'm sorry, you just have to be such a sick, ignorant fuck to look at this and be like, you know what? We had people arguing when you did the last segment on this. The white people were there first in Africa. So yeah, that's the level that you're dealing with on the people defending this. Like, look, when you're on the side of the white South Africans, you need to check in on your compass. I'm sorry, man. It's just amazing. Again, as a child of the 80s, I just can't even believe we're having this conversation. The poor white South Africans. What the fuck?
Especially from the most hawkish president of our lifetimes in terms of immigration. He's this border hawk where nobody comes in. People who are here who say the wrong things have to go. But there's this one exception. We're going to give
white South Africans, but we're not racist.
Yeah.
We're not racist. We're not racist. And if you call us racist, you're woke.
Right.
Right. Listen,
we're making an exception for white South Africans who get an expedited path to citizenship.
Yeah, look, it speaks very well, remarkably well, of the Black population of South Africa, that these people were not dragged off their land decades ago.
Right.
That violence was not committed against them, that they were not put on trial, that they were not locked up in jails. Let me tell you, man, if the position were reversed, and it were white people who took the country back from an oppressive minority that had abused them, you wouldn't be able to find a Black person within 1,000 miles of that country. They would have killed everybody. It is remarkable how patient and eager to reconcile with a white population that abused and oppressed them for so long, that to the extent that they've allowed this kind of economic inequality, race-based economic inequality, to persist like this. When this story first broke, I was shocked that it's still like this, that
Yep.
you have this tiny 7% minority of the public because they didn't have a bloody revolution.
Right. They did it
They
peacefully.
didn't do it that way. If they had a bloody revolution, it wouldn't be like this. Wouldn't be like this. And frankly, if I were a white person living in that country and I was 7% of the population and I were holding most of the land, you know what I would do? I would shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I would shut the fuck up because the vision that you have of a horrific backlash against you seems to me you're doing more to bring that about than anything else by making such a big stink about a completely reasonable policy. You know, you don't want them to do it that way. Well, you know, what did Kennedy say? Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. If I were 7% of the population, I'd probably shut my fucking mouth right now.
Especially since they are not having their land confiscated
They're
without
not.
cause and
They're
without
not.
an offer from the government to compensate you for it, if it comes to that. And to this day, no land has been confiscated. None. Zero.
Which again, it's almost inconceivable that the black majority has been this patient and tolerant with their former oppressors. And it really speaks of their character that they're making such an issue of this policy and manipulating opinion in the United States through the Trump administration and Trump's billionaire puppeteer.
Yes, his billionaire Afrikaner puppeteer. Yes. All right. Miami Vice Musk. I like that. Still not working. Conservative monkey suit. Musk and Trump stuck in 80s Coke deal gone wrong. Musk equals DeLorean. Thank you, MCFC. Rentier oligarch. I like that one. Real Boston Tea Party energy with this direct action versus Elon. Americans have never liked corrupt favoritism to massive corporations, be it the British East India Company or Tesla. Milton Crow, thanks for the $10. If the Biden administration had mandated the COVID vax for all U.S. Visa green card holders, would MAGAs have been okay with that? Interesting question. Thank you. Eric Rousseau, we will have Total Recall Johnny Cab, but it will be Elon Cab with Elon-looking driver. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Ellen Jimerson, from an immigration attorney under INA, what's that, the Immigration Nationality Act 237, a non-citizen may be deportable if they have espoused or endorsed terrorist activities or potentially serious adverse foreign policy effects. Again, I would just say that they have not made a specific accusation against this man. They have not documented anything. I think that goes to what I was going to say before about material support. When asked about what this man has done, nobody has said anything. Nobody has said a single thing. Right. They haven't been able to. They're characterizing the movement that way, which is especially dangerous because then they could just pluck anybody out of it. Right. They could just say, well, this whole movement is characterized as providing support. And therefore, anybody who we have photos of, this is why they mask up, because anybody who once you categorize it that broadly and that severely, then anyone who you can say is associated with that movement, you could do with them what you want.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Hillary Hinton, I take solace in the fact that it's always cocktail hour somewhere in the United States of the Dutch East India Company. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. All right, let's move along. We got 2 more segments on the day here, folks. We'll do our scroll and our tour plug after this one. So this is yet another ICE story. This time, a white person was nabbed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're going to that now?
Yeah.
All right. You just did your South Africa.
Yep.
Okay. So from what I understand, Trump took a meeting and somebody said, it's getting a little obvious that our immigration policy is motivated by racial animus. What we really need to do is lock up a pasty Brit on just completely vague premises. So this story is blowing up among our friends on the British Isles right now, but it gives you an idea of the kind of collateral damage that you get from the kind of immigration policies that are kind of mindless, bureaucratic, vaguely quasi-legal practices, and who can get caught up in it unexpectedly. Because I'm sure they didn't want the press of locking up some British girl backpacking, but that's what happened. So this is a post that was put out by a group in Leeds. This is fascism. This is Becky Burke. She was on a backpacking tour of North America and crashed into Trump's immigration pogroms. Her father writes, our daughter Becky, a 28-year-old British tourist, has been caught up in the recent immigration crackdown in the U.S. What was meant to be a life-changing 4-month backpacking trip across North America has turned into a nightmare. Despite being a tourist with no criminal record, she was handcuffed and taken to a detention facility in Tacoma, Washington. Becky's current conditions are deeply concerning. She is sharing a cell, surviving on a diet of cold rice, potatoes, and beans. She is vegan and has limited access to phone calls. Visitors are restricted to speaking through a glass screen via a telephone. All her possessions have been confiscated, and she feels isolated and desperate to come home. We are doing everything we can. We are in touch with the British consulate in London and San Francisco. An American friend is helping by sending funds to her inmate account so she can buy basic necessities like tea. All right, I'll grant you that's the most British shit ever.
Right.
But progress has that's the necessity, tea. But progress has been slow, and we urgently need more support. We are asking for your help. Please share Becky's story widely through your networks. We hope to connect with experts, legal professionals, or anyone who can offer advice or assistance. Becky is a kind, adventurous young woman who simply wants to return home to her family. So these are her parents being interviewed in England by kind of their equivalent of Good Morning America, I guess. Let's take a look at a little bit of that.
This is a paperwork mix-up, and they're holding her in what we can't believe the conditions she's being held in. It's a proper prison environment.
It seems a very heavy-handed way to handle this situation. She is with other women who are being held for weeks and weeks, but also, as you said, in prison clothing, denied access to good food and to ordinary communications. It must be very, very kind of worrying and distressing for you that this holiday's turned into such a nightmare.
It's incredible, and it's a surreal situation. That they are told, Becky has told us that when any of the women arrive at the detention centre, including her, they're told that this is not a jail, but the conditions are an exact definition of a jail. She had all her possessions confiscated. She had to swap away from her own clothes, and she's wearing a prison jumpsuit. She's a vegan, so the only solution for a vegan is for her to be given rice, potatoes, and mushy beans every day, and that's for the last 14 days.
I mean, that's a proper British diet,
last
to be
night,
fair.
we spoke to her, and she said she had to see the medic because she's got digestive problems. I think most people would have digestive problems after 2 weeks on cold rice and potatoes. Nobody can contact her. She has to ring out.
I will say that that does sound better than most of what they serve in Britain. Yeah. But maybe I just didn't go to the right places. But this is just insane. This poor girl is in a Kafkaesque nightmare because she used a service where you can stay for free at people's houses if you do a little domestic chores around the house. This is really cracking down on that criminal element there. I hear she had ties to MS-13, right? Visa rule warning as tourists detained at U.S. border. A Welsh woman has spoken about being held in horrendous conditions after she was accused of violating her visa and was stopped at the U.S. border. Becky Burke, 28, has spent 11 days in a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Processing Center in Washington State and was also denied entry into Canada over a visa mix-up. Speaking to the BBC, Ms. Burke said, "They keep saying in all their booklets that this is not a prison. It's hard to distinguish from my conception of a prison." Well, Becky, it's not a prison because they say it's not.
Right.
You've read your Orwell, I'm sure. I said all aliens in violation of U.S. immigration law may be subjected to arrest, detention, and if found removable by final order, removal from the United States regardless of nationality. I said she was being detained at the Northwest ICE Processing Center. Her father, Paul Burke, has urged travelers to be very careful about their visa requirements. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said it could not comment on specific cases for privacy reasons, but added all persons arriving at a port of entry to the United States are subject to inspection. CBP officers treat all travelers with integrity, respect, professionalism, and according to law. In the event a foreign national is found inadmissible to the United States, CBP will provide the foreign national an opportunity to procure travel to his or her own home country. If the foreign national is unable to do so, he or she will be turned over to the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement removal operations for repatriation. The UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office confirmed it was supporting a British national. Ms. Burke, an artist from Portskewett, Monmouthshire, began backpacking around the U.S. on 7th January. Picked a hell of a time of year to do it. She had flown from New York to Portland, Oregon, where she spent time with a host family, helping with household chores in return for accommodation. At the end of February, she traveled to Seattle with plans to travel to Vancouver in Canada to stay with another family. However, when she reached the border, Mr. Burke said the Canadian authorities denied her entry as they were concerned she may try to work illegally. Now, from my understanding, if you're from England, you can work there anyway for a couple of years. You're able to go to any Commonwealth country and live and work there. I believe it's for 2 years. So
interesting. Yeah.
So why would she need to work illegally there? So this is stupid on the Canadian side as well. She described how she spent 6 hours at the border waiting while officials were, quote, trying to determine if what I had been doing in America counted as work. She said she was interrogated, and despite explaining she was not paid at all, it was decided she had violated her visa. Ms. Burke said she was being held in a dormitory of 110 people in a maxed out immigration detention center in Tacoma, Washington. Quote, they wake us up at 6:30 a.m. There is never enough time to sleep. It's so cold, she said. I wear the same jumper for a week. They're short or out of stuff like blankets and extra clothes. I have one towel. She added many of the people she had met were stuck at the center, separated from their families, in some cases for years. Everyone is actually really shocked when I explain my situation, she added. Hang on, you are not the brown. You are not the brown. I came to the U.S. for the first time 2 years ago. I had a great time. That's why I wanted to come back again. I love nature and hiking. Now I see no nature in here at all. Immigration experts tell the BBC that once Ms. Burke informed Canadian officials of her plans and they denied her entry, a suspension of her visa waiver and detention on the U.S. side was probably unavoidable. Many countries strictly interpret what constitutes compensated work, even if no money changes hands. And under the best of circumstances, processing within the U.S. immigration system can move slowly.
Can't you just say, all right, fine, I won't wash the dishes. I won't do anything. I'll just stay here for free. I'll just be a freeloader.
This gets into that. Yeah. Like she's willing to leave, but they're so backed up that it's unclear when the bureaucracy will release her. It's an unusual circumstance. She says she is unlike most of the more than 100 detainees in her building in Tacoma, many of whom have been held for months or even years. She wants to travel back to her home in the UK as soon as possible, while others she speaks to from places like Mexico, Brazil, and Russia have family in the US and are unwilling or unable to return to their home nations. According to the experts, we probably won't have any advance notice of when she is allowed to get on a plane and leave. It could happen, and her family find out about it after the fact. Ms. Burke's dad described the situation as a misunderstanding of her accommodation arrangements, which were just like a cultural exchange. He said Ms. Burke got free accommodation for helping host families around the house, which he believes authorities may have suspected broke the terms of her tourist visa. Mr. Burke told BBC Radio Wales Breakfast he could not understand why his daughter was locked up and she's in an orange prison jumpsuit whilst the paperwork gets sorted out. He said what was meant to be a life-changing backpacking trip has turned into a nightmare. He added, at first she was just distraught. She was inconsolable. She is allowed to ring out using a shared iPad, but we can't call her. The dad said as their family is not American, they cannot add money to Ms. Burke's inmate account for her to buy essentials, so they've reached out to some American friends to help. Mr. Burke said his daughter just wants to come home and has asked for voluntary departure, but it has been radio silence. The family have been told voluntary departure has to be approved by a judge, but added that they do not know how to make that happen. Melissa Shavin, a U.S. immigration lawyer based in London, said Ms. Burke could be released either through voluntary departure or expedited removal, but the process of appearing in front of a judge as part of voluntary departure could be delayed because several dozen of the approximately 700 immigration judges had resigned or been fired by the Trump administration. Ms. Burke said she planned the trip before Trump's presidency, but was cautious and aware she would need to prove that she did not intend to stay in the country. She added she was lucky compared to some people who were fighting to remain in the country and were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Everyone's story is really sad. No one deserves to be in here. Everyone detained here is so nice, she said. So here, this is what they call the law of unintended consequences. Does the Trump administration really want the press of locking up some pasty British girl who didn't do anything?
Surfer, basically.
Yeah, who didn't do anything other than to try to come here and backpack? No, but hey, man, once you unleash this kind of bureaucracy and this kind of zero tolerance, and it's up to the chuds at the immigration service to decide what that means, well, things like this are going to happen. And now, because the bureaucracy is so broken and underfunded, they don't have an obvious legal way to get her out more quickly, right? She's caught up in this bureaucratic process. They don't have enough judges. How long is this girl going to be in there? Weeks, months? And listen to these conditions that they don't have any option other than to give her the same meal of rice, potatoes, and beans every day. How long are they going to do that? A month? 2 months? It's almost like a Twilight Zone episode. This is like a favorite device of the Twilight Zone to have somebody who would never experience these kinds of conditions, experience what this is like, what actually happens to people who you would never talk to, you would never encounter under normal circumstances. I mean, look at what she says. Everybody in there is so nice. Nobody in here really deserves this. And for other countries, this isn't getting any press in the United States. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. But as somebody who used to work in the tourism industry, what do you think this is going to do for tourism? Because in England, this story is blowing up big time and across the continent. And this is happening at a time when people are taking it upon themselves to boycott the United States in retaliation for the tariffs. It's not just counter tariffs, You're having people around the world who are being hit with these tariffs deciding to boycott American goods, particularly in Canada. They have a whole campaign going to buy the Canadian version of goods that people are buying American. So you have this administration is kind of stomping around like the 400-pound gorilla with the assumption there's nothing others can do to retaliate. You're just going to have to take it. And there are ways people can retaliate. Elon's not going to suffer for it. He has more money than you could spend in 100 lifetimes. The average American is going to suffer for it when people don't want to come to America anymore because they're afraid they're going to wind up in an ICE facility on a paperwork mishap.
Well, yeah, and look, I mean, I think the question that people are going to start considering is, do they really want to live in a place like this? Like, is this like, do people want to live in this environment? Like, if you are, really dug in and engaging online, 24/7, the way a lot of, high-profile MAGA accounts are, okay, this is fun to you because this is what you do. Right? Like you just brawl all day with people, and the more hostile the circumstances, the more grist for the mill, right? It kind of feeds what you do. Does the average person want this? Is the average person gonna want to live in a place like this? This sounds like a nice place to live, or to visit, or to travel to. Right? Exactly.
Like, why would you, with all this chaos going on?
Right.
Why would you want to come here? Delta.
Yeah.
Delta just took a huge hit because they reported a drop in demand for air travel. Now, it's partly the economy, people not being able to afford it. But I think you're going to see a huge hit to American tourism, both just because people don't like Donald Trump, that they're not going to want to come to America. But I think also with the tariffs, people are going to want to retaliate against America by not putting money into the American economy with their tourist dollars. And then you get stories like this. I mean, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Hey, this country is so crazy that I could just wind up getting caught up in some kind of ICE deportation scheme. Exactly. What am I going to go there for? I hear the Seychelles are lovely this time of year.
Yeah, the Seychelles, yes.
The Seychelles, our favorite place on this show.
That's right. All right, folks. Hey, if you like what we do and you want to help us do more of it, the best way to do that by far is to become a member. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can also join our Substack at DoDissidents.substack.com. Or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble, the easiest way to join our locals is to click that bright red join button underneath the screen. It's just $5 a month. You get access to all kinds of perks. You get call-in access to our Q&As every Sunday night after the main show. You will also get 2 bonus live streams per month, 1 film club and 1 content live stream. Both of those are call-in interactive streams as well. You also get your name up in lights here on the supporter scroll, and, of course, the good karma of supporting independent media. We could not do the show without our supporters, so that's DoDissidents.locals.com for everyone on YouTube. Everybody on Rumble, it's even simpler than that. Just click that bright red join button underneath the video player. Thank you very much for your support. And this is last call for tickets to Russell's tour. We have single-digit availability for Friday and Saturday nights.
Last call for alcohol. I got 5 tickets left per night. So this is going to be my last tour in New York for a long time, maybe ever. Who knows? So far, God has given me the years, but you never know. You're going to wake up in the morning. You thank God for every day. I am doing my Irish mob tour of Hell's Kitchen for St. Patrick's Day. So this covers really late 19th century into the late 20th century. The Irish mob dominated Hell's Kitchen on the west side of Manhattan. I'm going to take you to murder sites. I am going to take you to Irish mob former headquarters that are still active bars. We're going to go to the places where the gangsters lived, worked, killed, grew up. And one of the coolest things about this tour is, unlike if you go downtown, the old 5 Points where the Irish mob first started, there's not a single building standing from that era. For this tour, every single site that we're going to talk about, the original building is intact.
There you go. So dudissidents.com/tour. If you can't make it, we will be streaming night 2 of the tour Saturday night on Rumble exclusively. That'll be a great stream. So subscribe to our Rumble channel so you don't miss that. If you're not following us on Rumble, got to subscribe to Rumble. That's where it will be in all of its glory on Saturday night at 7 p.m. But everybody else who wants to make it in person, like I said, 5 tickets left each night, dudissidents.com/tour. All right, we got one more segment, the one you've all been waiting for. You're going to wait a minute or two longer because we're going to take some super chats here. Space 99 Yak, Frank Luntz taught us words matter. Death tax, Frank Luntz, death tax versus estate tax. When you say free Palestine, what do you think Israeli next door will do? Well, a free Palestine doesn't mean there's going to be an Israel next door. A free Palestine means equal rights on that land. So a free Palestine means there is no next door country. A free Palestine is a one-state solution with free and equal rights on that whole land. Jazz Yacht Rocker. Sorry, wow. That was illiterate of me. Yacht Rocker. I said Yacht Rocker. Yes. A USA, come on vacation. Be held till deportation. There you go. Thank you. I wanted blah, blah, blah. Thanks for the donation. Watch Kingdom of Heaven. It shows the difference between Arab Muslims and European Crusaders after liberating Palestine back during the Crusades. Yeah, I watched that when it came out. I haven't watched it since. Maybe I should give that a view. Mark, thanks for the $2.99. CVID from Spokane. ICE smash immigrant's car. Ah, that's Washington State as well. Thank you very much for that. Alphonse the aborted. P.S. Any legal basis for personhood other than simple humanity leads to the gas chamber. Free Palestine. Thanks for your well wishes. You didn't need to read this one out. Well, I did, Alphonse. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right, folks. We are going to do one more segment on the day. All right, folks. This is a fun one. I'm sure a lot of you guys who saw this were very excited to see Aaron Maté and Rabbi Shmuley go head to head. And so we're going to take a look at this. Aaron Maté calls Rabbi Shmuley a Nazi. That's right. So we're going to actually pick up the video a couple minutes before that, because what really prompted Aaron to dig in against Shmuley was that Rabbi Shmuley accused Omar Badar, who's the panelist on the far right, of being an anti-Semite for suggesting that it's Israel's fault for cutting off the power to Gaza. So we're going to pick it up there, and then we're going to hear Aaron clap back in true buzzsaw fashion.
Hundreds of billions of dollars they got not to build one bomb shelter, not one electricity plant, which could have answered Pierce's issue about they used it all to build a terror network for their fighters and then use babies and every and you say about Jewish supremacy. I want to stand unequivocally with a yarmulke and a beard. I believe as a Jew that God loves every Palestinian child as much as a Jew. And everyone that died is because of Hamas, Hamas.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Omar, I want you to respond to that.
Sure. I mean, first, it is quite rich to hear Rabbi Shmuley complain about anybody interrupting. He's pretty much a three-trick pony. He's either interrupting, or he's lying, or he's smearing people.
Ad hominem. Are you really going to get into ad hominem this early in the debate? You really have to personalize it. Deal with the facts, please.
There's the first
Stop
trick.
the ad
That's the
hominem
interruption
attacks.
trick.
Go ahead.
He's demonstrating it.
Please don't do the ad hominem,
his first trick for you right now. In fact, Piers, frankly, if your audience watching at home were playing a drinking game in which they took a shot every time he either lied or interrupted, half of your audience would be dead before
this
the program
is just ad hominem. Do you know facts or not? Do you want to debate fact or do you want to insult me?
Are you going to keep interrupting? Are you going to keep complaining about interrupting and then do your own interrupting? Are you just going to demonstrate your hypocrisy to everyone on television?
Here we go. Hypocrisy, liar. We know what you think about Jews. Debate the facts. Forget the evil me and debate the facts.
Unbelievable level of hypocrisy.
Aaron's like, man, this is even worse than the Vanguard. Should go on the Vanguard again. Yeah.
I don't appreciate people implying that by running a sex toy business with my daughter, I'm feeding into the idea of Jewish pornographers and perverts.
Right.
That's ad hominem. You are demonstrating your hypocrisy right now by continually interrupting and you don't like what you're hearing.
Try and stop.
I'll set the insults if that's even possible with dealing with people like you. Now, Rabbi Shmuley actually fully understands that the reason why there's no electricity in Gaza is because Israel. Can you be quiet? Can you be quiet and let me finish what I have to say? Rabbi Shmuley knows extremely well that the reason why there's no electricity in Gaza is because Israel bombs the infrastructure in Gaza and then puts Gaza under siege and does not allow Palestinians to rebuild their own power plants. They've created a situation of dependence where Gaza cannot survive on its own economically. It has to depend on Israel, and that is by design because Israel wants to be able to shut off the electricity at any point. Rabbi Shmuley knows this, but he tries to play on the uninformed audiences. He takes them for fools and hopes that they won't be able to see through the idiocy that he's actually demonstrating right now.
So now I'm an
but
idiot.
anybody with a functioning brain will understand very well that the reason why Gaza is not free is because Israel prevents it
Google
from being
more
free.
personal insults. You can't deal with a single historical fact that I said, so you've called me an idiot, hypocrite, a liar. Let me tell you something. See, this is what we call classic anti-Semitism.
You think your narrative is made up of facts? Are you kidding me?
I quoted to you the Peel Commission, the UN, the Omer deal. You cannot respond to a single one. So what do you have to do? Ad hominem, ad hominem, ad hominem. Deal with me as a person and try to suppress your hatred for Jews. Thank you.
Now, I want to say something now. I'm not a religious
Okay, so then this is a couple minutes later where they toss to Aaron.
person. So I can't claim to be a devout Jew. But I got to say, Rabbi Shmuley, you don't speak for me. Accusing people like my friend Omar of anti-Semitism simply because he wants the freedom of his people, it saddens me to see what people like you have done to the Jewish tradition. The suffering of my family, my great-grandparents perished in the Holocaust. They were murdered by the Nazis. And today, I have to tell you, I see you as the modern-day followers of the Nazis, supporting this mass murder campaign in Gaza, putting the people of Gaza in what even Israelis have called a concentration camp. It's the Israeli Jews of today, supported by American Jews, unfortunately, some, that are following in the footsteps of our oppressors. And I hope one day you can connect to your own humanity and the very best of your own tradition, which I believe in, to see just how horrible this modern state, this modern supremacist state, is not only for the Palestinians, but the Jewish people as well.
You can't seriously be saying that Rabbi Shmuley, one of the most high-profile Jews in the world, is a successor to the Nazis.
Is a Nazi.
I mean, that's a pretty despicable. That's a pretty despicable thing to say, isn't it?
I mean, you are such a fucking moron and a hack. I mean, I'm sorry. Piers Morgan is worst of the worst. He's so incurious. I mean, how he tweeted out, and I think I either quote tweeted or replied to him. He tweeted out, "Hey, Israel shouldn't have the power to cut off the electricity in Gaza." And I tweeted back at him, and the tweet did very well because I guess this is a sentiment shared among so many people. You'd think you would have come to this conclusion earlier, since you've been discussing this topic every day for the past year and a half. Talk about a guy who's stupid on purpose. He cuts Aaron off. He says, that's a despicable thing to say to a Jew. Aaron mentioned in that piece, he's Jewish himself. He lost ancestors to the Nazi Holocaust, and it is because of that tragic family history that he feels especially offended by A, what Israel's doing now, and B, the cover that Shmuley is running for it. So if you're the host, why would you go to, how dare you call him, how dare you make a Nazi comparison to him? Aaron is every bit the Jew that Rabbi Shmuley is. Aaron has every right to claim ownership of his heritage and ancestry that Rabbi Shmuley has. So why would you come back and call him despicable rather than reckon with that very profound point? Hey, I have lost family members to the Holocaust, and now I see the Jewish state committing a Holocaust of their own. Why wouldn't you strengthen that point? Why would you push back in the cheapest, most incurious and ignorant way? Because he's a hack. Because Piers Morgan is a complete and total hack who has these conversations that he gets such credit for. He learns nothing from them. He learns nothing from them on purpose. He didn't figure out until a few days ago that Israel had the power to turn off the electricity in Gaza and that was a problem. Really? You've been debating this topic in public for an hour a night, every night for the last year and a half, and that just occurred to you? He's just such an incurious, stupid hack. It really is incredibly frustrating to watch.
Yeah, Piers Morgan is the Christian Bale and Memento of journalists, of telejournalists. He has no memory of what was said to him 10 minutes ago.
Right. He has to.
Every episode is the first episode.
Exactly.
that he's ever done. Good on Aaron for, as far as I know, being the first in this kind of a format to actually say that to his face.
Yeah.
The reason that Piers Morgan has to jump up and feign offense is because he's running a wrestling show disguised as a debate show. We know from people that he's invited on what he looks for. He's just looking for people who are going to hit each other over the head with a chair and do a body slam and a suplex. That's what he wants. He doesn't really care what the subject is. He doesn't care who the people are. Now, the benefit of that is because that's what he's doing, he does have interesting panels. That's why even for people who are interested,
that's why the ratings are through
in legitimate conversation, because what other show would put Aaron on a panel with Shmuley, right? Where, who has the juice to get them both to show up? There are people who might ask, but not ones that could actually get them there. So it does have that value. I mean, look at the moment that it created. But he wants to maintain his standing in polite company. He is not a radical. He is not a moralist. He is not somebody looking to take a political stand on any issue. He likes his shrimp cocktails and his martinis dry, and to go to nice places with nice people. And you don't get to do that when you say, well, I think Aaron has a point there. You have to admit. He's not going to say that. He has to show that he's with the club. He's putting these people on the air, but he's still in the club.
Right. And to the extent that these debates happen, he wants to keep it as superficial as possible by saying, how dare you say that, rather than actually look into what a profound point that is, right? And we know, we won't name names, but we know that the Piers Morgan show reaches out to people and they say, hey, there's this person coming on who you really hate. Wouldn't it be great if you come on with them and you can, just have a big sort of, WrestleMania type throwdown? That's what he's interested in.
That's the whole show. Yeah, that's the whole show.
That's why he paired them. That's why I think he paired Shmuley with Norm at one point, right? So that's the whole sort of concept of the show. All right, let's let this play a little more.
You can't seriously, Aaron. You can't seriously be saying that Rabbi Shmuley, one of the most high-profile Jews in the world, is a successor to the Nazis.
Is a Nazi.
I mean, that's a pretty despicable. That's a pretty despicable thing to say, isn't it?
He supports the mass murder of children in the concentration camp. What else am I supposed to do?
May I respond to that? May I respond?
I think you should respond to that.
These are Nazi tactics.
Aaron,
These are Nazi tactics.
Aaron, notice I have not once offended, used ad hominem attacks against Omar or you. I have decided that I'm going to be factual. No, excuse me. You won't interrupt me.
High road
Omar started excuse me. Omar started calling me a liar. He wouldn't deal with any facts. A hypocrite. He said I'm drunk on lies, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we call ad hominem, personal attacks. I've seen it whenever, and I debate everybody because I like Piers, and this is why I love the show. I'm also a free speech absolutist. The person you just called a Nazi spent the past year with his friend
I just have to point out.
Free speech absolutist.
He's been tweeting and posting about how Khalil does not have First Amendment rights relentlessly since he got arrested.
Yeah. Free speech absolutist. Wow.
Because of our close relationship from my years as rabbi at Oxford, he was my student president. And Bobby Kennedy Jr., the new HHS Secretary of Health and Human Service, saving 200 Palestinian children who had cancer. Hamas would not let them go to an Israeli hospital because they would kill their families if Israeli hospitals treated them. Shaare Tzedek or Sheba Medical, all of whom agreed to take them. We had to take them to St. Jude's Hospital in Amman. And I helped get them out. And the reason why the Israeli military wanted the kids out but not their accompanying attendants is that so many of them were terrorists pretending to be an uncle, a grandfather, terrorist. But I helped them out. A few of them died. It was terrible. I think we saved 173. But I want to say something to you, Aaron, if I may, respectfully. I believe what you just said about me as a Jew, comparing me to a Nazi, will live in ignominy, respectfully, on your resume forever and ever and ever. I think you have now permanently undermined any and all semblance, iota, molecule, atom of credibility. Because if you can compare me, if you can compare me, father of 9 children, grandfather of 11, who has fought his entire life for Arab rights, who, when I was a rabbi at Oxford, got halal meat for all of us, including the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia, who today is...
Oh, you got halal meat for the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia. I apologize. I had you all wrong. You made sure that the king of Saudi Arabia's grandson could eat, had access to halal meat. Well, I take back everything I said about Rabbi Shmuley then in that case. Wow, this is going to follow you forever. No, actually, that statement is going to live up very, very well. And it's amazing and astounding that actually took so long for someone to say that to your face. And I'm really glad that Aaron did that because, that just has to be normalized. There's this thing where you can't call an Israeli a Nazi because of their history. Well, no, absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. And as a Jewish man, it makes it even more powerful. Aaron is sort of, I won't say uniquely equipped to do it. I mean, it means something extra coming from him, given his father's history and his family's history. And obviously when Jews say that, it means a little more. But I think anybody should be allowed to say that, whether you're Jewish or not. I say that as a Jewish guy myself. What else do you say? Aaron says, you support mass murder of people in a concentration camp. What else am I supposed to call you?
Right. Well, a lot of people have been making that comparison for a long time, but this is, I think, the most high-profile platform where anyone has actually said that.
Yeah.
And hey, that's what this is all about. It's about fighting over narrative. And certainly Shmuley is on the front lines of fighting to make sure that open conversations like that don't happen. Clearly, what they are doing, the great tragedy, great irony of this, the way that, in spite of what Shmuley's saying, the way that history will remember this, just as we pore over the Nazi past, because it's such a fascinating window into human nature under unusual circumstances and what people are capable of under the right conditions. That's how people are going to remember this. This is going to be examined as a study in how people can become the oppressor that they were fighting against. It's very much Nietzsche's be careful in fighting monsters lest you become one. That is how history is going to remember Israel. It's going to offer tragic insight into that aspect of human nature, of how the abused can become the abuser, can become the perfect reflection of their former oppressor.
Yes. And to put it in those terms, to make a Nazi comparison, is not an offense to the Jews who suffered in Nazi Germany.
No.
It's an offense, a rightful offense, against the Israeli state, who are behaving like Nazis. I mean, that is just the truth of the matter. And as for Russ said here, I just want to pull this tweet. I'll screen share it here. Because I actually don't follow Rabbi Shmuley on Twitter. I should have, just to see what he's been tweeting about Mahmoud. But here he is, retweeting Noah Rubin. I support the detention and deportation of Mahmoud Khalil. Pass it on.
Free speech absolutist.
And pass it along he did. The free speech absolutist, Rabbi Shmuley. Yeah. Wow. I mean, and that's what Omar said. He said, "Oh, you lie and interrupt and talk over people and extend your point so that people can't really push back against you." I mean, this is an Israeli tactic of just flooding the zone with bullshit.
And I would love to know the truth about that cancer story, because Aaron was shaking his head. He clearly knew what the actual story was, but there were other things going on. I would love to know what the truth is there.
I was hoping they would get into that, but again, what I mean by this is, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. I was hoping they would get into that, because a story involving Rabbi Shmuley and RFK and cancer patients, that sounds like there's a lot of bullshit attached to that story.
That is very typical Hasbara. These are the kinds of stories Zionists tell. These just they love that kind of story, like outrageous stories of the horrible cruelty of the Palestinian leaders and the decency of Israelis in spite of everything they've suffered. They're just trying to reach out a hand and help these people against their barbaric leadership. I've been hearing that shit since I was a child. They would tell these crazy stories just like that.
Right. And that's what I mean by flooding the zone. Like, I too was curious about that story. So I'm like, oh, maybe, because Aaron was shaking his head like he thought something was up with that. But we never got to it. And part of the reason why we never got to it, because I watched the clip a few minutes after where it cuts off here for the show. Part of why they didn't get to it is because of what I just said. He just keeps talking. They just flood the zone with bullshit. They just keep going and going and going, where by the time you were going to fact check something they said, now that thing is 5 things ago, and you have all this other stuff to deal with. Yeah, but the basic truth of that is pretty inescapable, and I love that. I love this.
Respectfully, I believe what you just said about me as a Jew, comparing me to a Nazi, will live in ignominy, respectfully, on your resume forever and ever and ever. I think you have now permanently undermined any and all semblance, iota, molecule atom of credibility.
Semblance, iota, molecule, atom. That's what I mean. They just go on and on and on. Just keep talking. Any semblance of credibility. That's all you got to say. Yeah. Just keep
compare me. If you can compare me, father of 9 children, grandfather of 11, who has fought his entire life for Arab rights, who, when I was the rabbi at Oxford, got halal meat for all of our students, including the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia.
I love that. When I was a professor at Oxford, I procured halal meat for the grandson of the king of Saudi Arabia. That's his example of having fought for Arab rights. A Saudi royal's grandson studying at Oxford was able to eat halal chicken because of my efforts. Wow.
I sent sex toys to Oman.
Yeah, right, exactly. What a hero. What a hero. All right. Paul Green, Dennis says, going to see No Other Land tomorrow in the Film Forum in NYC. Oh, awesome. There are apparently some online copies of that are have been distributed, so that will probably be our film night, No Other Land, this month. Seb Griffiths, thanks for the $5. As a JOO, Shmuley makes me think, okay, I can't read the rest of that, but thank you, Seb. And haven't seen you in a while, Seb. Thank you, Seb. Fun Bad, thanks for the $5. Is worker strike back going to work with the Starbucks and Kaiser mental health care strikes going on now? They had something. They tweeted out something. I don't know what it was. I haven't read it yet, but I hope they do. I hope they certainly should. Thank you, Fun Bad. WVP, it's Vito P. We'll make a great tourism ad. Travel to the U.S. for our great accommodations, roommates, rice, mushy beans, and free jumpsuits. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Godspeed, Vito. Thank you very much for that. The China Shill, I do love me some front slash. There you go. Why do people pick on me for saying front slash? DoDissidents.com/tour. It's called a front slash. What do they call it? A slash?
No, front slash.
I thought it was called. Yeah, some people call it forward slash. I don't like forward slash. I like front slash. Aaron refers to Rabbi Scumbag as a Nazi. Piers Morgan sphincter tightens around egg. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Killer.
Call it bonus hole.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, folks. Hey, that is our show today. We want to thank you very much for being here. Go over and follow our Rumble channel, DoDissidents.com/Rumble. That takes you to this stream. And if you go there and hit that follow button, we'll be live on Rumble. Well, Russell will be live. I will not. I will be in Saratoga Springs. I want to wish my wife, Amanda, a very happy 10-year anniversary. We are 10 years married tomorrow. And so we're having a little staycation in Saratoga for the weekend. So thank you very much for 10 great years to my wife, Amanda. Actually, we've been together almost 15, but married 10 tomorrow. Pi Day. We got married on Pi Day, 3/14, and it was 3/14/2015, and the Pi digits are 3.1415. So some of our friends really nerded out on that. Yeah. So that's where I'll be over the weekend. But Russell will be live in Hell's Kitchen with our friend Big Mad Crab. Thanks, Big Mad Crab, for doing the camera work on that. And Jake will be in the booth. Head over to DoDissidents.com/Rumble so you don't miss it. That's all we got today, is it not?
That is it.
All righty. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys very much. Saturday night, Irish Mob Tour in Hell's Kitchen over on Rumble. Sunday night, 7 p.m., we will be back on all channels. Until then, thanks very much for hanging out with us this afternoon. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.